The Paladin Protocol by Derek Slayton. Chapter 1. The Meridian Enterprise corporate building stood 15 stories against the night sky, a monolith of glass and steel that reflected nothing but darkness back at the world. At 11:37 p.m., most of its windows were black rectangles, though a scattered handful still glowed with the pale light of monitors and overhead fluorescence, evidence of the few souls who remained inside at this hour. The compound occupied a deliberately isolated stretch of land. Half a mile of open fields surrounded the building on every side, flat and featureless, offering clear sight lines in all directions. Beyond the fields, an 8-foot fence traced the perimeter of the property, and just past that fence, a wall of trees swallowed the horizon. A lone driveway cut through the emptiness, connecting the parking lot to a road that most people would never have reason to travel. There was nothing else out here. No neighboring businesses, no gas stations, no houses. Whoever had chosen this location had wanted privacy, and they had gotten it in abundance. Inside the front lobby, the only sound was the rhythmic slap and drag of a mop against polished tile. Dave Morrison worked his way across the floor in long, even strokes, the same pattern he had followed 5 nights a week for the better part of a decade. At 44, he had the build of a man who worked with his hands and the eyes of a man who noticed more than he let on. The lobby was his favorite part of the shift. It was quiet, the lighting was low, and on most nights he could get lost in the simple rhythm of the work. Tonight was not going to be one of those nights. Footsteps echoed from a small bank of offices off the main floor, sharp and quick, the sound of expensive shoes moving with purpose. Dave straightened up and called out without looking. "Watch your step. The floor is wet." A man's voice drifted back to him, the words running together in the rapid cadence of someone deep in conversation. It took Dave a second to realize the man was not talking to him at all. He was on the phone. "You may want to watch your step," Dave said, louder this time. The voice kept going, closer now, the man's attention buried entirely in his call. Dave heard the exact moment it happened, a squeak of leather sole against wet tile, a sharp intake of breath, and then the clatter of a phone hitting the ground, followed by a string of curse words muttered underneath the man's breath. "Jesus Christ, you need to warn people about the floor." Dave turned his head. The man glaring at him was young, maybe mid-20s, wearing a suit that cost more than Dave made in a month. Kevin Hartwell. Dave had seen him around the building before, always moving fast, always talking, always looking through the people who kept the place running rather than at them. The young man stared the janitor down, waiting. "Did you hear me?" Kevin asked. "I did, but it's pretty clear you didn't hear me," Dave said. Kevin's jaw tightened. He was not accustomed to being talked back to, certainly not by a man holding a mop. He took a couple of steps toward Dave, closing the distance in a way that was meant to intimidate. Before the moment could escalate into anything physical, another voice called out from the far end of the floor. "Is everything all right in here?" Both men glanced over. Tom was crossing the lobby toward them, a tall man of 50 who was surprisingly fit for his age, his security guard uniform crisp and unmistakable even at a distance. He had the easy stride of someone who had broken up 100 arguments in his career and expected to break up 100 more. "Yeah, Tom, we're all right," Dave said. "Mr. Hartwell here was just telling me what a good job I'm doing on the floors." Kevin stared Dave down for a long moment. Then the corner of his mouth curled into a smirk as he recognized the play for what it was. "Yeah, real nice job," Kevin said. "So nice, in fact, that I can see why you're going to be doing this 20 years from now. Don't worry, though. When I'm up on the 15th floor, I'll make sure to compliment you." Kevin punctuated the remark with a condescending wink. He bent down, scooped his phone off the tile, and resumed his conversation mid-sentence as he walked off toward the elevator bank, not sparing either man another glance. Tom walked over to Dave and stood beside him, both of them watching in silence until the elevator doors slid shut and swallowed Kevin whole. "Arrogant little prick, isn't he?" Tom said. "Yeah, but we've seen it all before," Dave said. "Young corporate ladder chasers. He'll be burned out by the time he hits 30. $10 says he quits by 28. You're on?" The two men shook on it, a small ritual between friends who had made a dozen such wagers over the years and settled most of them over coffee. Tom started toward the elevators, then paused. "I'm going to go check on the new girls before I grab some coffee," Tom said. "You want me to get you a cup?" "Yeah, I'll be up on 3. All right, I won't be long. Take your time, Dave said. I know you're sweet on them. Tom stopped and stared at Dave. I'm old enough to be their father, Dave. Let's be real, you're old enough to be their grandfather. Both men let out a laugh, the sound carrying across the empty lobby. Tom playfully flipped Dave off as he walked over to the elevator, and Dave returned to his mopping with a grin still on his face. Tom rode the elevator down, watching the floor indicator drop past the lobby and keep going. The basement level sat a good 50 feet below the ground, a fact that had always struck him as excessive until someone explained how much of the company's money lived down there. The doors opened onto a mixed-use lab that was relatively clean by the standards of the people who worked in it. Computers and high-end supercomputer components lined the walls, their cooling fans producing a low, constant hum that filled the space like white noise. Multiple tech stations dotted the middle of the floor, each one cluttered with tools, cables, and half-assembled hardware in various stages of construction. At the far end of the room, two young women in their early 20s occupied neighboring stations. Mindy sat hunched at a computer, fingers moving across the keyboard in steady bursts, while Jenny leaned over a small chip with a soldering iron, a thin wisp of smoke curling up from the tip. Tom approached quietly, keeping his footsteps soft against the concrete floor. He had learned the hard way that startling someone holding a soldering iron was a mistake a person only made once. "You don't have to sneak, Tom," Jenny said without looking up. "Sorry, Jenny, I didn't want to mess up your work." "There isn't much we can mess up if we're being honest," Mindy said. "This looks all high-tech. I'm sure there's plenty you can mess up. Trust me, they aren't letting two low-level people like us touch anything of importance," Mindy said. Jenny set down the soldering iron and stretched her arms over her head. "We're one step above the guy who decides what color finish to give the Paladins." Tom paused for a moment. He recognized the tone. He had heard it from dozens of young employees over the years, the sound of ambition running headfirst into the reality of entry-level work. He searched for something inspirational to say, turning the words over in his head until he finally figured it out. "You know, girls, I've been here so long that I can remember another young woman who had your job," Tom said. "But she didn't let it hold her back. She kept pushing, kept grinding, and you know where she is now?" He paused for effect, letting the question hang in the air between them. "She's up on 12, running her own lab." The two young women shared a glance before turning back to the security guard, and Tom could see he had their full attention now. "You know Lisa Webb?" Mindy asked. "I do. I used to bring her coffee when she was working late into the night, not unlike the two of you." "What's she like?" Jenny asked. Tom thought for a moment before speaking, weighing his answer. "Well, like the two of you, she knows the value of working hard." Up on 12, the lab told a different story than the one in the basement. The layout was similar, with workstations arranged through the center of the room and equipment lining the walls, but everything here was much shinier, more technologically advanced. Where the basement had computer terminals and loose components, this floor had precision. In the middle area, advanced metal components rested on padded stands in various states of assembly. There were metallic arms with articulated fingers, legs built around hydraulic joints, and off to one side, something long and angular that resembled a weapon. Lisa Webb paced back and forth across the floor, her eyes fixed on the tablet in her hand. On screen, schematics of a large android rotated slowly, layers of the design peeling away and reassembling as she swiped through them. She had reviewed these schematics hundreds of times. She could have redrawn most of them from memory, which was exactly why she had stopped pacing. "What in the world is that?" Lisa zoomed in on an arm of the schematic. There, nested in among the components she knew like the back of her hand, was something that looked out of place, a structure she had not designed, a structure she had not approved. She stared at it for a few long moments, enlarging it, rotating it, checking it against the revision history in her head and coming up empty every time. She lowered the tablet and walked over to the corner of the room, where a rough-looking android stood motionless against the wall. The machine was over 6 feet tall, its metal frame carrying a dull shine, the unfinished look of a work in progress. Its head was bowed slightly, its arms hanging slack at its sides, powered down and harmless. Lisa stared at it for a moment, the way a sculptor might study a half-finished statue, equal parts pride and scrutiny. "All right, Paladin Prime, what is going on with you?" She popped off a panel on the Paladin's arm and leaned in close. She looked at it for a moment with confusion, muttering to herself. tracing connections with her eyes, following pathways that should not have existed. Then she turned and made a beeline across the lab to her computer terminal against the wall. Lisa dropped into the chair and went to work. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up code repositories, cross-referencing version logs, digging down through layer after layer of the Paladin's architecture. Minutes passed, the muttering stopped. Her search narrowed and narrowed again, and then she found it. Her eyes went wide as the screen filled with lines of code she had never seen before. "You son of a bitch!" Lisa stared at the screen, disbelieving, reading through the code a second time as if it might rearrange itself into something innocent. It did not. She pushed back from the desk and began rummaging around in her drawer, shoving aside pens and cables until her fingers closed around a red thumb drive. She slotted it into a port, executed a few keystrokes, and a copying program spun to life, a progress bar crawling across the screen. While the program worked, she paced back and forth in front of the terminal, talking to herself. "That son of a bitch, I can't believe he would do that. I can't believe that he thought I wouldn't notice." Her eyes drifted to Paladin Prime, still standing silent in the corner, and lingered there. The computer let out a ding behind her, snapping her out of it. The transfer had finished. Lisa pulled the thumb drive from the port and pocketed it. She gathered up her belongings, slung her bag over her shoulder, and walked toward the elevator without a backward glance at the terminal, the schematic still glowing on the abandoned screen. She hit the call button, then she hit it again, and a third time, willing the elevator doors to open. The floor indicator crept toward 12 with agonizing patience. Finally, the elevator car arrived and the doors slid apart. The moment they opened, an alarm triggered. A siren blared through the building, loud and piercing, rolling on for several seconds before an automated voice cut in over the top of it. "Attention, attention. Security Protocol Alpha, repeat. Security Protocol Alpha, all personnel report to the third floor terrace. Repeat. All personnel report to the third floor terrace." Lisa stood at the threshold of the elevator as the message cycled, her hand resting against the pocket where the thumb drive sat. Of all the nights for the system to light up, it had to be this one. She let out a sigh, stepped onto the elevator, and let the doors close behind her. Chapter 2. The alarm continued to sound through every floor of the building, the siren rising and falling in steady waves, while the automated voice repeated its message on a loop. Security Protocol Alpha. All personnel report to the third floor terrace. The words had lost their meaning by the 10th repetition, becoming just another layer of noise. Inside the elevator, Lisa leaned against the back wall and watched the numbers tick downward. 12, 11, 10. Her hand drifted to her pocket once, confirming the thumb drive was still there, then dropped back to her side. By the time the car settled at the third floor, she had arranged her face into something neutral. The doors opened to reveal the open terrace, a wide common area ringed with planters and seating that the company liked to feature in recruitment brochures. During the day, employees ate lunch out here and held informal meetings around the low tables. At this hour, with the overhead lights dimmed to their after-hours setting and the alarm wailing overhead, the space felt like somewhere no one was supposed to be. Dave, Tom, Jenny, and Mindy stood clustered in the middle of it, all four of them wearing the same confused expression. Jenny had her hands pressed over her ears. Mindy kept glancing up at the nearest speaker, as if she could shut the thing off through sheer force of will. Everyone looked to Lisa as she stepped out. "There you are, Lisa. Do you know what all this is about?" Dave asked. "Hey, Dave. No, I don't know. I was on my way out when it started chirping." "Is there any way you can get the alarm to stop screaming?" Mindy asked. "Yeah, this is killing my ears," Jenny said. "It's programmed to stop once everyone is in the designated area," Lisa said. "Are we all not here?" Mindy asked. "No, Kevin Hartwell is in the building," Dave said. "At least he was about 20 minutes ago." "Knowing that jackass, he's probably sitting in his office," Tom said. "Or trying to get out of the front door," Dave said. As if on cue, the elevator dinged again. The group turned toward the sound in unison. The doors opened to reveal an agitated Kevin, his tie loosened and his face flushed, looking like a man who had spent the last several minutes pulling on locked doors and losing an argument with each one of them. His eyes swept across the terrace, passed over Lisa and the two young women without a flicker of recognition, and landed on the one person he had already decided was responsible. He stepped out and pointed accusingly at Dave. "You, mop boy, why did you lock the front doors?" "I did no such thing," Dave said. The answer only served to agitate Kevin even further. He crossed the terrace in quick strides and jabbed a finger into Dave's chest. "You better unlock those doors now, or else I'm—" Dave's voice went cold. "Or else you're going to what?" The tone was enough to get Kevin to think twice. He held Dave's stare for a moment, but whatever he saw looking back at him convinced him to remove his finger from the janitor's chest. When he spoke again, there was a hint of calm in his voice. "Just get that door unlocked." Kevin reached down and smacked a set of keys hanging from Dave's belt loop, sending them jangling against his hip. "Get it done. I have a hot date." "Sure you do, Kevin. Sure you do," Dave said. Kevin's face darkened, but before he could react, Tom stepped in between the two men. "The keys aren't going to do any good," Tom said. "When the alarm is tripped and everyone is designated to meet here, it means there's an internal problem. The doors are hard locked to prevent people from leaving." "What kind of stupid system traps people inside the building?" Jenny asked. "The justification for it was to prevent a thief from escaping," Tom said. "There was an incident about 10 years back. Someone broke in and took some proprietary documents, cost the company a pretty penny. After that, Mr. Meridian put this system into place." The group took a moment to absorb that. A building designed to seal itself shut with everyone still inside was the kind of detail that sounded reasonable in a security briefing, and considerably less reasonable when a person was standing in the middle of it. Then, without warning, the siren cut out. The automated voice stopped mid-sentence, and the floor fell quiet. After the relentless noise, the silence felt almost physical, pressing against their ears. Jenny lowered her hands slowly, as if she expected the sound to start up again the moment she let her guard down. For a few seconds, nobody said anything, everyone waiting on an announcement that never came. "Well, it's pretty clear that there isn't a thief in the building since the alarm shut up," Kevin said. "Maybe the doors are open then?" Mindy asked. "No, we would have heard them," Tom said. "Even up here?" Jenny asked. "Yeah, if we didn't hear the locks disengaging, there would have been an automated message letting us know." "So it's a glitch then?" Dave asked. "It could be," Lisa said. "I know there was talk in my department about upgrading the security system." "Oh, great. I'm going to miss out on a good time because some egghead doesn't know how to program properly," Kevin said. "Relax, Kevin. You'll make your date," Tom said. "All I have to do is reset the system." Tom pulled a set of keys from his belt and dangled them in front of Kevin's face, jingling them the way a person might entertain a toddler. Kevin swatted the air near them and turned away, which only widened the grin on the security guard's face. "I'll be back in a few minutes," Tom said. "Mind if I come with you?" Dave asked. "I'd like to know how to reset the system in case you're not here." "Sure, come on." Tom turned to the other four people, sweeping a finger across the group like a teacher addressing a classroom. "Now you stay put and play nice. We'll be out of here in no time." Kevin mumbled something unkind under his breath as they walked away. Both the security guard and the janitor heard it, and both of them let it go. 20 years in a building like this taught a man which battles were worth fighting, and Kevin Hartwell was not one of them. The two men walked down the hallway together, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. The third floor had cleared out hours ago, the offices dark behind their glass partitions. Chairs still pushed back at odd angles from the day's last departures. Somewhere down the hall, a copier hummed in standby mode, the only other sound on the floor. Dave had walked this route 1,000 times with a cart full of cleaning supplies, but walking it beside Tom felt different, almost social. The two of them rarely got to spend time together outside of their coffee breaks, their shifts overlapping just enough for a few conversations a night. They made a turn and continued toward the outer edge of the building, where the security office sat tucked against the far wall. "I swear, if it's the last thing I do at this job, I'm gonna smack the shit out of that prick Kevin," Tom said. "Pretty sure if you did that, it would be the last thing you do at this job," Dave said. "Yeah, I know he can fire me, but man, what a way to go out." Both men chuckled as they entered the security office. It was fairly large, a 30 by 30 room that served as the nerve center for the building's guard staff. Various lockers lined one wall, most of them dented and plastered with old stickers. Computer stations occupied the middle of the room, arranged back-to-back in pairs, and a master computer terminal was built directly into the far wall, its oversized monitor displaying a rotating series of camera feeds from around the building. "Give me just a minute. This won't take long," Tom said. Dave nodded as he started to look around the room. In all his years working the building, he had never spent much time in here. The security staff kept to themselves for the most part, and the janitorial staff returned the favor. He wandered along the wall of lockers, reading the nameplates, while Tom went over to the terminal, took a seat, and began typing on the keyboard. The camera feeds vanished from the screen, replaced by a system interface dense with menus. A red alert pop-up blinked in the center of it. "It's a pretty simple process to lift the lockdown," Tom said. "All you have to do is click on the alert pop-up and type in the command password, which is..." Tom trailed off. He looked around the desk, lifting a clipboard and setting it back down, sliding a stack of papers to one side. Whatever he was looking for was not there. "Which is what?" Dave asked. "I don't see the binder. Do me a favor, check those desks over there for a blue binder. It's 80s neon blue, so you can't miss it." Dave nodded and began looking around. He moved from desk to desk, scanning the surfaces first, then checking the drawers that were not locked. Behind him, he could hear Tom still clicking through menus at the terminal, muttering to himself about how the day shift never put anything back where it belonged. The binder was nowhere in plain sight, which figured. In his experience, the more important a thing was, the more likely someone had shoved it wherever it fit the day they were done with it. He had found fire evacuation plans holding up broken table legs and master key logs buried under year-old takeout menus. A password binder living under a desk would not even crack his top 10. After a few moments, he spotted a corner of neon blue peeking out from underneath one of the desks, wedged between a filing cabinet and the wall. Tom was right. Even in shadow, the color was impossible to miss. A shade of blue that had not been fashionable since leg warmers were in style. Dave took a knee and reached for it. That was when he heard something out of the ordinary. It was a metallic sound, like metal joints coming to life. A whir of servos, the smooth articulation of components sliding against one another, movement where there should not have been any. Then a chair tipping over, clattering against the floor. Then a gurgling sound. Dave froze, his hand resting on the binder. "Tom, is that you?" No response. The gurgling continued, wet and strained, accompanied by a scuffing noise like shoe heels dragging against tile. "Tom, why are you messing around?" Dave grabbed the binder and stood back up, turning toward the terminal. His eyes went wide. A Paladin stood at the master terminal, its massive frame filling the space where Tom had been sitting. Its hand was wrapped around Tom's neck, and it had the beefy security guard lifted clean off the ground, his boots kicking a foot above the floor. Tom thrashed against the grip, both hands clawing at the metal fingers around his throat, his face darkening to a deep shade of red. "What in the hell?" Dave blurted the words out without thinking, and they drew the attention of the Paladin. The android's head rotated toward him with mechanical smoothness, and its eyes fixed on the janitor, glowing a deep shade of red as it glared at him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Dave stood rooted to the spot, the binder hanging from his hand, pinned in place by that burning stare. Then the Paladin turned its attention back to Tom. The security guard was still fighting, still thrashing, driving punches and kicks into the android's frame with everything he had left. His fists rang off the metal without leaving so much as a scratch. It was like watching a man fight a vending machine. With a flick of its wrist, the Paladin snapped Tom's neck like it was a dried-out twig. The sound carried across the room, a single sharp crack, and then the thrashing stopped. Tom went limp all at once, his arms dropping to his sides, and the Paladin released its grip. The security guard fell lifeless to the floor, landing in a heap beside the overturned chair. The binder slipped from Dave's fingers and hit the ground. The neon blue cover splayed open against the tile. He turned and ran for the door in a panic, his legs moving before his mind had caught up, shoulders clipping the corner of a desk as he scrambled past it. He burst out of the security office and into the hallway, yelling as he ran, his voice cracking with terror. "Help me! Help me!" Chapter 3. Lisa, Jenny, Mindy, and Kevin remained on the third-floor terrace, waiting. There was not much else to do. Mindy had settled onto one of the low benches near the planters, and Jenny sat beside her, picking at the hem of her sleeve. Lisa leaned against a support column, with her arms crossed, watching the hallway that Tom and Dave had disappeared down. It had only been a few minutes, but, with the alarm silenced, every small sound carried across the empty floor. the building settling, the hum of the ventilation, the tap of Kevin's shoes against the tile. Kevin was the only one still on his feet, pacing back and forth across the open floor, checking his watch every few passes like the act itself might speed things along. Each lap seemed to wind him a little tighter. "Don't worry, we'll be out of here soon," Mindy said. "They better hope so," Kevin said. "If that security guy doesn't get that door open in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to have his ass in the unemployment line." "That's a little harsh, Kevin, don't you think?" Jenny asked. He didn't cause the alarm. Kevin stopped pacing. He turned toward Jenny with a look that suggested she had just made a serious mistake. "No, it's not harsh. Harsh is me telling you that if you call me Kevin one more time, I'm going to make sure you join him in the unemployment line. You're beneath me, so you'll address me as Mr. Hartwell." Jenny was taken aback. Her mouth opened, then closed again, and she quieted down, shrinking back against the bench. Mindy put a hand on her friend's arm. Lisa pushed off from the column. She crossed the terrace in even, unhurried strides and stepped up to Kevin, getting eye to eye with him. "I'm going to need you to apologize to Jenny there, Kevin." Kevin's face twisted at the seeming disrespect. First the intern, now this woman he had never bothered to learn the name of. "Sweetheart, I can do this all day long. You can join them looking for a job if you keep it up. I work alongside the executives, and I'll be shoulder to shoulder with them in a matter of months. You call me sweetheart one more time, I'm going to have one of my paladins dangling you off the roof," Lisa said. Kevin was not sure what to make of that. It was not the response he expected, and the phrasing bothered him more than the words themselves. "Your paladins? Just because you're on the assembly line picking out their nail color doesn't make them yours." Kevin held onto his smug expression for a moment, waiting for her to back down the way the intern had. She did not. Instead, she was smirking at him, the way a card player smirks when the other side of the table has just bet everything on a losing hand. "You would think someone that works with the executives would know who makes them all their money," Lisa said. Kevin's face went white. "Now wait, who are you exactly?" "That's Lisa Webb, you jackass," Jenny said. "As in lead programmer for the Paladin Project, Lisa Webb," Mindy said. "As in the person who can have you detailing our cars with a toothbrush with a single phone call," Lisa said. "Now, do you want to apologize, or should I make a call?" Kevin's bravado drained away as quickly as the color had left his face. His eyes darted around the terrace as if searching for an exit that did not exist, then landed in a side glance on Jenny. "I'm sorry," Kevin said. "What was that?" "I didn't quite hear you," Jenny said. "I said I'm sorry." Kevin glanced over to Lisa, looking for confirmation that the ordeal was over. She waved him away with the back of her hand. "Go stand in the corner until it's time to go." Kevin nodded and did as instructed, retreating across the terrace with what little dignity he had left. He never made it to the corner. From down the hallway came the sound of running footsteps, hard and frantic, along with a voice raw with panic. Help me! God help me!" "What the hell?" Kevin said. Dave sprinted into view at the end of the hall, arms pumping, moving faster than a man his age had any business moving. He blew past the group without stopping, running straight for the elevator, and slammed the call button as hard as he could. Then he hit it again. And again. "Dave, what's wrong?" Lisa asked. "And where's Tom?" Jenny asked. Dave kept his eyes on the elevator doors, his chest heaving, his hand still hammering the button. "He's dead. Tom's dead." The words landed on the group like a physical blow. For a moment nobody moved, everyone waiting for a punchline that was not coming. The confusion was written across every face on the terrace. "What? How?" Jenny asked. Mindy began crying, her hands coming up to cover her mouth. Dave kept hitting the elevator call button, muttering under his breath at the machine to hurry. Lisa and Kevin walked over to him. "What do you mean dead?" Kevin asked. Dave finally turned away from the doors. He looked to Lisa, and there was something in his eyes she had never seen there before. "One of your paladins killed him." "That's impossible," Lisa said. "They're protection androids, programmed to not hurt civilians under any circumstances." "Exactly," Kevin said. "They aren't even equipped with lethal ordnance, just non-lethal tasers meant to disable an enemy combatant if they target civilians. They can only kill in extreme cases, and this hardly qualifies." Lisa glanced at Kevin, confused that he knew that much about the project. The specifications he had just rattled off were not the kind of thing that showed up in the company newsletters. "I interface with the advertising team," Kevin said. Lisa nodded before turning back to Dave. I don't care what your advertising says. I saw one of those paladins snap Tom's neck, Dave said. Lisa, how is that even possible? Kevin asked. I don't know, and I don't think we want to stick around to find out. The elevator dinged and the doors opened. Everybody piled in, pressing together in the car as Dave stabbed the button for the first floor. The ride down passed in silence, 5 people watching the numbers descend, each of them running through their own private calculations about what was waiting below. Mindy wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. Kevin stood closest to the doors, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Nobody looked at anybody else. The doors opened onto the lobby. The wide floor stretched out in front of them, Dave's mop and bucket still sitting abandoned near the office bank. Everything exactly as it had been left. 20 minutes ago, this had been the most boring room in the building. They ran across the open space to the front doors, a long row of glass panels facing out into the night. Beyond the glass, the parking lot sat under its pools of lamplight, their cars visible in the distance, close enough to see and impossibly far away. They tried every one of them. Dave yanked on handles. Kevin threw his shoulder into the frames. Jenny and Mindy worked the far end of the row, while Lisa tested the center doors, each one refusing to give so much as a rattle. The locks were not just engaged, they were seated deep, the doors solid as walls. "Get me out of here! I gotta get out of here," Dave said. Kevin broke away from the doors and grabbed a heavy wooden chair from the waiting area. He lifted it over his head, took 2 running steps, and threw it at the window with everything he had. The chair bounced off the glass and clattered to the ground, leaving the pane without a single mark. "It's enhanced safety stuff. We're not getting through it with a grenade, let alone a chair," Lisa said. "Then what the hell do we do?" Kevin asked. Before Lisa could answer, the speaker system clicked on, a brief bit of feedback crackling through the lobby to get their attention. A moment later, the large video screens on the wall beside the doors lit up. A lone figure appeared on screen. He was an older man, seated in an expensive overstuffed chair, a glass of scotch resting in his hand. He regarded them through the camera with the relaxed patience of a man who had nowhere else to be. It took a moment before Kevin recognized him, and when he did, he straightened up like a soldier at inspection. "Mr. Meridian?" "Is this everyone?" Meridian asked. Meridian leaned forward, scanning the people gathered in front of the screen. His eyes moved across each face in turn, before he nodded, satisfied with his count. "Yes, it would appear so. 5 little rats trapped in a maze after some naughty little creature stole the cheese all for themselves." "What is he talking about?" Jenny asked. Kevin shooshed her with a sharp wave of his hand, earning stern looks from Mindy. He stepped closer to the screen, smoothing down the front of his shirt. "Mr. Meridian, I can assure you that nobody stole your cheese, or anything for that matter. Nobody would be that stupid." "One would think so, given my reputation, yet here we are." Kevin turned and looked around at the group, his deference to the screen curdling into accusation. He pointed at each of them individually, jabbing his finger from face to face. "Well, which one of you is it? Give it back so we can get the hell out of here. Or, so help me, I will beat it out of you." Everyone shook their head no. Dave held Kevin's stare while he did it. Jenny and Mindy shrank back from the pointed finger. Lisa's expression gave away nothing at all. "As persuasive as that was, I do not believe it achieved the response you were looking for," Meridian said. "So, allow me." The video screen changed. Meridian's study was replaced with security footage of the security office on 3, the image sharp and unmistakable. On screen, a paladin held Tom off the ground by his throat, the guard thrashing and swinging while the android stood perfectly still beneath him. Then came the flick of the wrist, and Tom stopped moving. Everyone recoiled. Mindy turned away from the screen entirely. Jenny's hands went to her mouth. "See, I told you," Dave said. "That can't be, they can't do that," Kevin said. "They can only target enemy combatants." "You are correct, and right now, each one of you is considered an enemy combatant," Meridian said. "You see, stealing classified information from a government-funded operation makes you an enemy of the state, which means you are fair game." "But we didn't steal anything," Jenny said. "One of you did. And given the nature of the information, everyone is treated as a hostile until it is returned. Once it's in my possession, the others will be free to leave." The words settled over the lobby. 5 people, 1 thief, and a building full of machines that had just been given permission to treat them all the same. Dave was the one who finally asked the question the rest of them were circling. And what happens if the thief doesn't step forward? Well, Meridian trailed off, letting the silence do its work. He tapped something off screen, and the display divided into 4 video feeds, each one showing a paladin standing motionless in a different part of the building. The last feed showed a machine with a duller finish than the others, its frame unmistakable to at least one person in the lobby, Paladin Prime. The 4 on-site paladins will get a real-world exercise in hunting down the enemy. The 5 of them stared at the screen with despair. 4 machines, 15 floors, nowhere to go. A moment later, a mechanical whir sounded from the wall beneath the video screen. A small window slid open underneath the display, revealing a data port set into a polished panel, glowing a soft white like it was presenting itself for inspection. As soon as the information is returned to this data port, the doors will be unlocked, Meridian said. You have 10 minutes to comply. 10 minutes? That's not enough time, Kevin said. Meridian leaned back in his chair. He took a slow sip of his scotch, savoring it the way a man savors a drink when he has all the time in the world and knows his audience has none. Then he reached forward and clicked off the screen. His image vanished, replaced by a countdown timer in tall white digits. 9:59, 9:58, 9:57. What do we do? What do we do? Jenny asked. Lisa was already turning away from the screen, her eyes sweeping toward the stairwell door on the far side of the lobby. We move. Let's go. Chapter 4. The group ran for the stairwell, Lisa in the lead, and pushed through the door into the concrete shaft beyond. Their footsteps hammered against the steps as they ascended, 5 sets of shoes echoing up the stairwell like a drumline. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say that was worth the breath it would cost. They came out on the 4th floor, and Lisa led them out of the stairwell at a run, down the hall and around a turn toward a small office set back from the main walkway. It was the kind of room nobody would think to look in first, unremarkable in every way, which made it exactly what they needed. Dave, get us in, Lisa said. The janitor nodded, fumbling with his keys for a moment, flipping through the ring with shaking hands before finding the right one. The lock turned, and they piled inside. Dave pulled the shades while Kevin locked the door behind them, and for the first time since the lobby, the 5 of them stood still. The office was cramped with all of them in it. A desk, a couple of chairs, a bookshelf lined with binders that nobody had opened in years. Jenny stood in the middle of the room, her arms wrapped around herself, rocking slightly on her heels. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Jenny asked. The first thing we're going to do is calm down, Lisa said. Lisa took a knee in front of Jenny, grabbing her arms and looking her in the eye. She held the young woman's gaze until Jenny's eyes stopped darting toward the door. Take some deep breaths. There you go. In and out, nice and slow. Jenny complied. Her first breath shuddered on the way in, but the second came easier, and the third easier than that. Her shoulders began to drop away from her ears. Great. Now that the hysterical woman is calm, maybe we can focus on the problem at hand, Kevin asked. Lisa ignored him. She gave Jenny another nod, a silent confirmation that she was all right, before getting up. She pulled out her cell phone and looked at the screen. No bars, not even a flicker of one. I don't have a signal, Lisa said. The others pulled their phones out. Dave held his up toward the window. Mindy restarted hers entirely, watching the logo spin while it rebooted. Kevin waved his over his head like an antenna. Everyone saw the same thing. Dead air. What about the landline? Dave asked. Kevin stepped to the phone on the desk, picking up the receiver and pressing it to his ear. His expression told the room everything before he said a word. It's dead, just like us if we don't figure out who stole whatever Mr. Meridian wants. I don't have anything, Mindy said, and Jenny doesn't either. I'm just a janitor, Dave said, and I'm not risking my career, Kevin said. Kevin turned to Lisa, staring her down. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted into something accusatory, a prosecutor circling a witness. But you have the access, so why don't you just come clean so we can get out of here? Lisa stared him down, not impressed with the accusations. She had been in rooms with generals and board members. A junior executive in a torn suit was not going to rattle her. Everyone in this room has access and motive, Lisa said. Bullshit, Kevin said. Jenny and Mindy both work in the lab downstairs, which has a terminal that connects to the mainframe. They need the latest specs if they're going to adjust their production. Both Jenny and Mindy shared a concerned glance. Neither of them had expected to end up on the suspect list, least of all from Lisa. And Dave here? Well, he has the keys to every office and lab in this building, and plenty of people forget to lock down their terminal at the end of the day, Lisa said. Yeah, but he's just a dumbass janitor, Kevin said. A janitor, yes. A dumbass, well, not so much. Isn't that right, Dave? Kevin looked to the janitor, waiting for the punchline. I was working on a Master of Computer Science before I had to leave school, Dave said. Like I said, a dumbass, Kevin said. My wife got cancer, you insensitive prick. The room went quiet. Kevin quieted down with it, and for once he had the good sense not to fill the silence. By the time she went, I was in so much debt that going back to school wasn't an option, Dave said. The words hung in the air for a moment. Mindy looked at the floor. Jenny looked at Dave with fresh eyes, recalculating everything she thought she knew about the man who mopped the floors. Which just leaves you, Kevin, Lisa said. If you were working with the advertising team, then you'd have access to systems that held all sorts of classified information. Can't make an informed pitch to the generals if you don't know what you're working with, right? Yeah, well, it wasn't me. I don't have a motive, Kevin said. Sure you do, and it's the same one as everyone else. Money. The group looked around at each other, nodding, albeit reluctantly. It was hard to argue with. There was not a person in the room who could claim money meant nothing to them. Not the interns making entry-level wages, not the janitor buried in medical debt, not the executive with a suit worth more than his character. The right files to the right buyer would be worth billions, Lisa said. The Paladin Protocol is going to revolutionize warfare. Imagine being able to send in androids to protect the civilian population from the enemy. Yeah, and it can also be used to destabilize regimes that aren't friendly to our country, Kevin said. Drop in a battalion and let them protect the resistance while they overthrow the government. I suppose it could be used for that too, which only backs up my point. Every weapons manufacturer on the planet would pay a fortune to have the programming and schematics of the Paladins. A long pause settled over the office as the weight of it landed on everyone at once. Any one of them could have done it. Any one of them had reason to. And the machines hunting them did not care which one it actually was. So what do we do? Jenny asked. We need to call for help, Lisa said. Kevin held up the landline, letting the dead receiver dangle from his hand before tossing it aside. We tried that, remember? Besides, what the hell are the police going to do against the Paladins? We're not calling the police, we're calling the media, Lisa said. Confusion washed over everyone. Of all the lifelines Lisa could have suggested, that one had not made anybody's list. What the fuck is that going to accomplish? Kevin asked. I hate to agree with the man, but he has a point, Dave said. Nothing turns the population against a war like innocent people dying, Lisa said. Part of the selling point of the Paladin Protocol is to eliminate that. If word got out that the Paladins are killing innocent people, it would make it a harder sell. That's pretty weak, Lisa, Jenny said. Yeah, everyone knows that the public has a short attention span, Kevin said. 6 months from now, nobody would care, and the sale would go through. And what you don't know is that there is a rival company that is trying to replicate what we're doing here, Jenny said. And they're a lot closer than 6 months away from having a viable product. So if we get in touch with the media and tell them what's going on, Dave said, then we can use that as leverage to get out of here, Lisa said. Cut a deal, our freedom for a recanting of the accusation. Yeah, well, that sounds great and all, but we don't have a way to call for help, Kevin said. Maybe we do, Dave said. Dave thought about it for a moment as everyone turned to him. His eyes had gone distant, running through some mental inventory of the building he knew better than anyone else in the room. We have some radios in the maintenance room here on 4. Oh, great, some walkie-talkies, Kevin said. As long as a journalist is on the grounds, we'll be fine. They have a 2-mile range, asshole, and that's at ground level. Which means if we can get up to the roof, we might be able to reach someone, Jenny said. We're 10 miles from town, though, Mindy said. Yeah, but there's a relay tower 3 miles from here that should get the signal to town, Lisa said. The group looked around at one another. It was thin. Everybody knew it was thin, but nobody had a better idea, and the clock in the lobby had been counting down the whole time they had been talking. Yeah, sure, why not, Kevin said. Dave led them out of the office. As they opened the door, they saw a monitor mounted directly ahead of them across the hall, and every one of them stopped at the sight of it. The countdown read zeros across the board. Their 10 minutes were gone. "We have to hurry," Lisa said. Dave picked up the pace, leading the group down the hallway at a jog. The maintenance room was on this floor, one turn and a straight shot away. As they made the turn onto the next hallway, they heard it, heavy metallic footsteps coming from the far end. The group stopped cold. At the far end of the hall, a paladin stepped out from an office, its frame nearly filling the doorway as it emerged. Its head swiveled toward them, and it locked on, its eyes going from a deep blue color to bright red upon seeing them. "What do we do?" Mindy asked. Lisa looked over her shoulder, scanning the hall behind them, and spotted one of the low-end labs a short distance back. "The lab! Move!" She led them toward the door, and as soon as they started running, the paladin started running at them. Its steps were heavy, cracking the floor tiles as it moved, each impact landing like a hammer strike. It was a little slower than them, but still frighteningly quick, eating up the distance with long mechanical strides. The group got into the lab and slammed the heavy metal door shut just before the paladin reached it. The impact came a second later, a thunderous bang that shook dust from the ceiling, then another, then another. The door held, but with every hit it came further off its hinges, the frame around it beginning to buckle. Dave and Kevin threw themselves against the door, leaning into it with their combined weight, their shoes sliding against the floor with each blow. "We can't stay here," Dave said. Lisa ignored them. She was already moving along the wall, scanning the shelves of chemical containers, reading labels as fast as her eyes could process them. Finally, she grabbed a glass bottle labeled hydrochloric acid. "Get away from the door." "Are you crazy?" Kevin asked. Kevin looked back and saw her lifting the bottle over her head, squared up like a pitcher on the mound. "Yep, you're crazy." Kevin and Dave darted out of the way, abandoning the door. Freed of their weight, it burst open on the next hit, the paladin shouldering through the wreckage and into the lab. Before Kevin could get more than a step away, the paladin grabbed him by the shoulder and threw him aside like a piece of luggage. Kevin crashed through the glass beakers on a nearby table, the glassware exploding around him as he went through it, and landed hard on the ground, screaming in pain. Mindy and Jenny rushed over to help him. Lisa stepped up and threw the glass bottle of acid at the paladin, cracking it over the android's head. The bottle shattered on impact. Smoke rose from the metal facial casing as the right side of its face began to melt, the alloy bubbling and running like wax, the red eye flickering as the lines feeding it were severed one by one. The paladin stumbled from the attack, its arms pinwheeling as its systems fought to reorient. The opening was all Dave needed. He lowered his shoulder and planted it firmly into the android's back, driving with his legs, and sent the machine crashing to the ground in a heap of sparking metal. "Come on, we have to go," Lisa said. The two young women helped Kevin through the door, his arms slung across Jenny's shoulders, a trail of blood dotting the floor behind them. Dave followed them out. Lisa paused at the door. She looked back at the paladin, watching it struggle to get back to its feet, half its face running down its chest plate, its remaining eye still burning red as it clawed at the floor for leverage. She pulled the door closed and secured it from the other side. Chapter 5. The group ran down the hall to the maintenance room, Dave sorting through his keys on the move and letting them in. One by one, they slipped inside, Jenny and Mindy guiding Kevin through the doorway between them. Lisa paused at the threshold. She looked back down the hall toward the lab, watching the door she had secured, half expecting it to burst open. It stayed shut. Relieved, she let Dave pull her inside, and he secured the maintenance room door behind her. The room was a working space, not a hiding space. Shelves of supplies lined the walls, floor to ceiling, stocked with everything from light bulbs to industrial solvents. A workbench ran along one side, scattered with tools, and a fuse box was mounted on the far wall beside a utility sink. The lighting was harsh and fluorescent, and the whole room smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals. Kevin dropped onto a stool beside the workbench, cradling his arm against his chest. "Son of a bitch, that thing did a number on me," Kevin said. He held his arm up for inspection. His dress shirt was cut open along the forearm, the fabric dark and wet around a massive wound where the broken glass had carved into him. "We'll get you patched up," Jenny said. "I can do it myself," Kevin said. "Just shut up and let us patch you up," Mindy said. We're dealing with enough already without having to watch a pampered man-child try and stitch up his own arm. Kevin let out a huff, then nodded. Dave pointed to the wall near the utility sink. "There's a med kit over there," Dave said. Mindy went to retrieve it, pulling the white box from its bracket and carrying it back to the workbench. She popped the latches and started sorting through the contents, laying out gauze and antiseptic with the efficiency of someone who had patched up more than a few lab accidents. "So, is that thing dead?" Jenny asked. "Far from it, I'm afraid," Lisa said. Jenny tensed up, her eyes going straight to the door. Her hand found the edge of the workbench and gripped it. "Relax, it's going to be out of commission for a while," Lisa said. "How do you know?" Kevin asked. "Because in layman's terms, I took out its brain." "And that didn't kill it?" Mindy asked. "No, because my team programmed in multiple redundancies should the brain be taken out," Lisa said. "The moment it's damaged, or in this case, senses that damage is imminent, it relocates core functions to multiple backup points in the body." "So like a hydra," Dave said. "Cut off one head and 2 more grow back?" "More like cut off 1 head and 20 grow back, but yes, similar concept." "Why in the hell wouldn't you just set it up like that to begin with?" Kevin asked. "Because with the core functions spread out over that many brains, so to speak, the overall efficiency of the Paladin drops by 10%. Give or take." "Great, so we just need to take down 15 more brains to get it on our level," Kevin said. "Good luck with that. The redundant systems are in reinforced locations." "How long do we have?" Dave asked. 15 minutes, maybe 20, Lisa said. "Yeah, but there are still 3 more of those things running around," Mindy said. "They're going to be updating too," Lisa said. Everyone stared at Lisa. The statement made no sense to anyone else in the room, and the silence that followed made that clear. "What are you talking about?" Jenny asked. Lisa let out a sigh. Explaining her own design choices while they hunted her down was becoming a pattern she did not enjoy. The Paladins are all interconnected. When one is attacked, the others learn from it and adapt. Right now, they know that their brain is being targeted. As a result, they're taking preventative measures. The room absorbed that in silence. It was one thing to be hunted by machines. It was another thing entirely to be hunted by machines that were getting smarter with every encounter. The acid trick had worked once. It would never work again. Every trap they sprang, every trick they pulled, was a lesson delivered straight to the rest of the pack. "So, how in the hell do we fight these things then?" Kevin asked. "You'd think someone on the advertising team would know its weaknesses," Dave said. "Not sure if you've ever done advertising, but the first rule of it is, you don't highlight flaws," Kevin said. Kevin yanked his arm away from Mindy, who was midway through cleaning the cut. She yanked it back over, glaring at him until he stopped resisting and went back to work. "Once they're in the field, they're damn near impossible to destroy," Lisa said. "Lucky for us, we're still in the prototype stage." "So they have weaknesses?" Jenny asked. "Some, yes. We haven't installed proper grounding for the legs, so it is weak against electrocution. It won't kill it, but it will disable the legs." "Do they have a workaround for that?" Dave asked. "I don't know." "So, is there anything else?" Mindy asked. "Yes. There is a data port at the base of their spine that we can use to disable it, provided I can get the right material. And—" Lisa trailed off. Whatever the third item on the list was, she did not seem eager to share it. "What is it?" Jenny asked. "The only other thing that can have a hope of hurting it is a massive impact," Lisa said. "How massive?" Kevin asked. "One greater than we're going to be able to generate on our own. The shock absorbers aren't due to be installed for another few weeks, so they're a little more fragile than the deployed versions will be." "Fat lot of good that does us," Kevin said. Mindy put the finishing touches on his arm, smoothing the last strip of tape into place, then gave the bandage a light tap to let him know it was ready. Kevin winced. "All done," Mindy said. Kevin glared at her for a moment before giving her a semi-thankful nod, which was as close to gratitude as anyone in the room expected from him. "So we know how to take down 2, Dave said. "What are we going to do about the other 2? "Hope like hell that we can strike a deal before we have to figure that out," Lisa said. Dave nodded as he held up the walkie-talkie he had pulled from the charging rack on the shelf. He clicked it on, and static filled the air, a wall of white noise pouring from the small speaker. "Any idea what frequency a journalist might be listening to?" Dave asked. "Turn it to the police frequency," Lisa said. "I know a couple of freelancers in town who always listen in." Dave nodded and tuned it to the proper frequency, the dial clicking through the channels until he landed on it. He pressed the transmit button and spoke into it, but the only response was more static. He tried again. Nothing came back but that same empty hiss. He shook his head. "It's no good," Dave said. "We need to get to the roof," Jenny said. Dave nodded and moved to the door, easing it open. The moment he did, he heard heavy footsteps at the far end of the hallway, that unmistakable metallic cadence. He retreated quickly, slamming the door shut, then winced as he realized he had just made the exact noise a person hiding from a killing machine should not make. "What is it?" Mindy asked. "It's a Paladin," Dave said. "I thought they were going to be down for the next 15 minutes, Kevin asked. "I guess they're updating in shifts," Lisa said. Lisa rushed over to the door and put her ear against it. Through the metal, she could hear the Paladin working its way down the hallway toward them, its footsteps punctuated by the periodic crash of doors being forced open. It was checking each room methodically, one by one, and there were not many rooms left between it and them. "We have maybe 2 minutes before that thing is on us," Lisa said. "Then we make a run for it," Kevin said. "The stairs are in the middle of the hallway. We'd have to run right at it," Dave said. Lisa looked around the room, her eyes moving fast across the shelves and walls, and stopped on the fuse box mounted on the far wall. "Dave, do you know how to run a cable from the fuse box?" Dave followed her gaze, and he caught onto the plan in an instant. "I need 2 minutes." Dave went to work, grabbing a coil of heavy cable from the shelf and prying open the fuse box panel. His hands moved with the confidence of a man who had rewired half the building over the years, stripping the ends of the cable and tying into the panel while keeping his fingers well clear of anything live. Lisa scanned the maintenance room shelves, moving down the row of containers, reading labels as she went, before spotting what she was looking for. She grabbed an aluminum can of liquid off the shelf. "This will do the trick," Lisa said. "What the hell are you doing?" Kevin asked. "This stuff is highly conductive, so if we can hit it with the live wire at the right time, then we can fry the bastard. I like it," Kevin said. From the room next door came a crash, the sound of a door being bashed open, close enough now to rattle the shelves. Everyone in the room flinched. "Dave, how are we looking?" Lisa asked. "Almost there," Dave said. Lisa nodded, unscrewing the cap and dumping the entire contents of the container onto the floor in the middle of the room. The liquid spread across the concrete in a wide, glistening pool. "What the hell are you doing?" Kevin asked. "It's coming in through the door." "The same door we need to get out through, dumbass," Lisa said. Kevin thought about it for a moment before nodding. If they poured the trap at the back of the room, they would be pinned behind it. Mindy and Jenny grabbed onto him, pulling him toward the front wall of the room, the three of them pressing flat against the shelving beside the door, where they would be out of the line of approach. Lisa took her position across from the door, standing on the far side of the pool, the liquid stopping just inches from her feet. She was the bait, and she stood like she knew it, shoulders square, facing the door. Dave hid in the shadows to her right, crouched beside the workbench, the live wires held apart in his hands. A moment later, the Paladin started banging on the door. The metal buckled inward with each blow, and it broke through easily, the door swinging wide on bent hinges. The android stood in the doorway, its frame filling it edge to edge. Its blue eyes scanned the room, sweeping across the shelves, and turned red as soon as they locked onto Lisa. "Paladin 3, I should have known it would be you," Lisa said. "Always giving me trouble." The Paladin did not respond. It marched toward her, footsteps ringing against the concrete floor. Its first foot came down at the edge of the liquid, and at the sound of the splash, it paused. Lisa looked down. The android's foot had barely broken the surface, just the front of it resting in the pool. Its head tilted downward, processing, and she realized it was about to step back out. "Dave, now!" Dave dove out from hiding, extending the live wires and jamming them into the edge of the liquid. The Paladin tried to remove its foot, but it was just a little too slow. The current found it, and the electricity pulsed through its body in a blinding cascade. The Paladin convulsed where it stood, sparks erupting from its joints, arcs of electricity crawling across its frame. Its arms jerked and seized, its head snapping side to side, until finally its legs gave out and the machine collapsed to the ground with a crash that shook the room. Somewhere in the wall, the breaker tripped and the power cut out. The room dropped into darkness, lit only by the intermittent sparks still popping off the downed android. In the sudden quiet, the only sound was the Paladin thrashing around in the smoking liquid, dragging itself forward by its arms, its dead legs trailing behind it. Even now, even broken, it was still crawling toward Lisa. "Come on, we have to move," Lisa said. The others filed out through the ruined doorway, giving the twitching machine a wide berth. Lisa took the long way around the edge of the room, keeping clear of the liquid, the last to exit. At the doorway she stopped and looked down at her creation as it thrashed about, able to use only its arms, still trying to reach her with everything it had left. She shut the door, trapping it inside. Chapter 6. The group ran up the stairs, climbing flight after flight in the emergency lighting, their breathing growing heavier with every floor. Kevin's dress shoes were not built for this, and by the 10th floor, he had fallen to the back of the line, one hand on the railing, hauling himself upward. Jenny and Mindy climbed together, matching each other step for step. Nobody suggested the elevator. Being sealed in a metal box in a building full of hostile machines was an easy thing to vote against. They reached the top of the stairwell and came to the rooftop door, finding it closed. It was a heavy steel slab with a small placard reading, "Authorized personnel only." And on the other side of it was open sky, fresh air, and their one chance of reaching the outside world. Dave stepped up and went to work with his keys, trying one after another. The first 3 did not fit. The 4th fit, but would not turn. "Come on, man, get it open," Kevin said. "You're welcome to come try," Dave said. There was a hint of bitterness in his voice, enough to get Kevin to back down. The executive raised his hands and retreated a step, and Dave went back to the ring. He finally found the right key, and the deadbolt turned with a solid clunk. Dave grabbed the handle and pushed, but the door still would not open. He put his shoulder into it and shoved hard, and the door did not so much as flex. Through the gap at the edge, he could feel where it was catching, and it was not the deadbolt. There were additional locks seated in the top and bottom of the frame, the same deep mechanical bolts that had sealed the lobby. "Damn it, this door must be on the same locking mechanism as the front," Dave said. "So what do we do?" Jenny asked. "We go back down to 15 and hope it's good enough," Lisa said. The group went back down to 15, easing the stairwell door open and slipping inside. The floor was a much fancier office area than anything below it. The boss's office anchored the opposite end of the floor behind double doors, and private offices lined either side of the room. Cubicles filled the middle of the space, though even these were nicer than the ones on the lower floors. Taller walls, better chairs, the small upgrades that separated the almost important from everyone else. The wall to their left was made entirely of glass, floor-to-ceiling panels looking out toward town. It was dark out. The fields below swallowed in blackness, but they could just barely make out the lights on the horizon, a thin scattering of orange and white miles in the distance, proof that the rest of the world was still out there, carrying on without them. Dave walked over to the window and clicked on the radio. "Hello, hello, can anybody hear me?" He released the button and listened carefully. The only thing that came back was static. Then, for a brief moment, buried somewhere inside the noise, a voice. It was faint, chopped apart by interference, gone almost before it registered. Dave pressed the radio closer to his ear. "Say again, can you hear me?" More static. Whatever the voice had been, it did not come back. Dave adjusted his position along the window, holding the radio high, trying again, and got nothing for his trouble. His frustration boiled over. "It's no use, I can't get a signal." "So, now what do we do?" Jenny asked. Lisa's eyes moved across the floor, and an idea landed. She darted over to the nearest cubicle, dropped into the chair, and powered up the computer on the desk. "What are you doing?" Dave asked. "There might be a way to get a message out," Lisa said. "If they lock the phones down, it's pretty safe to assume they locked the internet down too," Mindy said. "Maybe, but I'm going to look anyway," Lisa said. The machine hummed to life, and Lisa went to work, her fingers moving fast across the keyboard. The others drifted around the cubicle in a loose half circle, nobody quite sure what to do with themselves while she typed. Kevin leaned against the cubicle wall and looked down at a photo frame sitting on the desk. The picture showed a nice-looking redhead in a slightly revealing summer dress, smiling at the camera from what looked like a backyard barbecue. "Now there's a woman I wouldn't mind getting to know a little better," Kevin said. "Jesus, dude, we're being stalked by killbots, and you're letting your dick do all of your thinking for you," Jenny said. "You're just jealous it's not looking in your direction," Kevin said. Jenny and Mindy both recoiled, twin expressions of disgust crossing their faces. Kevin muttered something under his breath and walked away, wandering off along the row of cubicles. Lisa continued typing away at the computer, windows opening and closing on the screen as she worked. All the while, her eyes kept drifting across the desk in front of her, scanning its contents between keystrokes. At one point, her hand moved from the keyboard, and she grabbed something off the desk and pocketed it in one smooth motion. Jenny noticed her do it, but with everything else going on, she did not think anything of it. After a few more moments of typing, Lisa let out a groan and pushed back from the desk. "It's no use, I can't break through the firewall." "It was a good thought," Mindy said. "Hey Lisa," Kevin said. His voice came from a couple of cubicles down, and there was something different in it. The sneer was gone, replaced by something almost thoughtful. "What is it, Kevin?" Lisa asked. "Did they use that bulletproof glass on all the floors, or just the first?" "Pretty sure just the first. Why?" There was a moment of no response. Lisa looked back toward the first cubicle just in time to watch Kevin pick up a small two-tier filing cabinet, hoist it against his chest, and take off running toward the window. He heaved it with everything he had. The center of the glass spiderwebbed at the impact, a burst of white cracks blooming outward from the point of contact as the filing cabinet clattered to the floor. Kevin walked up and inspected the damage, running his eyes along the fractures. "Oh yeah, this is going to work just fine," Kevin said. He looked back to the others, who were all standing there staring at him, and spread his arms in a scolding gesture. "Well, don't just stand there. Grab something heavy and help me." The others split up, spreading out across the floor in search of anything with weight to it. Dave and Lisa came back first, Dave hauling a filing cabinet of his own, and Lisa carrying a heavy monitor ripped free of its cables, and the two of them joined the fray. Jenny and Mindy continued hunting through the offices for something they could manage while the other three took turns battering the weakened glass. The assault fell into a rhythm. Kevin would throw, then Dave, then Lisa, each impact spreading the cracks wider, raining small pieces of glass onto the floor. The window fought them the whole way, the panel flexing and shedding fragments while stubbornly holding its shape, the way safety glass was designed to do. It took a couple minutes of sustained work before they had a significant hole punched through it, a couple of feet in diameter, with a long crack running from the opening all the way down to the floor. Cold night air poured in through the gap, the first outside air any of them had felt in hours, carrying with it the smell of the fields and the distant sound of wind moving through the trees beyond the fence line. "That big enough for you?" Kevin asked. "Yeah, I can work with that," Dave said. Dave stepped toward the opening, raising the radio. Before he could fire it up, the stairwell door was ripped off its hinges. The sound of it tore across the floor, metal shrieking as the door came free and crashed against the wall. The paladin with the half-melted face stepped through the empty frame. The ruined side of its head had hardened into a slag of frozen metal, and its one remaining eye glowed red as it swept the room, locking onto the three of them standing by the window. It began marching toward them. The three of them scattered, darting back into the cubicle farm as the paladin pursued. They split in different directions, ducking below the cubicle walls, and the floor went quiet except for the heavy rhythm of metal footsteps. They took refuge in various cubicles, staying low and out of sight as the android marched through the aisles. It moved without hurry now, its head sweeping from side to side, checking each opening as it passed. There was something worse about the slow search than the chase itself. The machine was not guessing. It knew they were in here, and it had all the time in the world. The footsteps grew closer to Lisa, then paused. She pressed herself against the cubicle wall and held her breath, listening to the faint whir of servos on the other side of the thin partition. The paladin looked down over the partition, and its eye found her. It grabbed at her, and Lisa moved. She avoided the grab attempt, jumping up onto the desk and diving over the partition into the next cubicle. She landed hard on the desk on the other side, rolled off it, and hit the ground in a heap, the impact knocking the wind from her. She gasped for air as the paladin tore the cubicle wall away and threw it to the side, then flipped the desk in the opposite direction, clearing everything that stood between them. Papers and office supplies rained down across the aisle. Lisa crawled backwards on her elbows, still fighting for breath, watching the machine close in on her. Its hand reached down. Before it could grab onto her, a metal stapler hit it in the head. The stapler bounced off with a clang and fell to the carpet. The Paladin was undeterred, still in pursuit, its fingers spreading wide, when another stapler hit it in the head. This one got it to look up. Dave was standing near the broken window, a third stapler already in his hand, yelling at it. "Yeah, that's right, big boy. Forget that appetizer. Why don't you come get the full serving?" The Paladin straightened. Lisa used the moment, dragging herself out of the wrecked cubicle and to the side, rolling behind a partition and out of its line of sight. The android looked down for her, found nothing, and focused back on Dave. It began to move, picking up speed as it went. Dave backed up closer to the window, keeping himself squarely in front of the opening. The Paladin came on faster, its footsteps hammering the floor, building to a run, a machine with one target and a straight line to reach it. Dave watched it come, his heels nearly at the glass, timing it. As the Paladin reached out for him, its momentum carrying it forward, Dave stepped to the side. He grabbed onto its arm as it passed, adding his own strength to its speed, and pushed it toward the glass. The Paladin hit the weakened window and crashed straight through it, the damaged pane giving way in an explosion of fragments, its own weight and momentum pulling it out into the open air. Before it was completely out, its hand shot back and clamped onto Dave's arm, fingers closing like a vice. Dave had only a fraction of a second to realize what was happening before he was over the edge too. "Dave!" Jenny yelled. Jenny ran to the window, the others close behind. They crowded around the shattered opening and looked down at the parking lot below, just in time to see Dave and the Paladin smash into the asphalt with a sickening crunch. The two of them lay there in the lamplight, 15 stories down, and neither one of them moved. The wind pushed in through the broken window. Mindy and Jenny shed tears, holding on to each other, while Lisa stood there dumbfounded, staring down at the parking lot. "He saved my life," Lisa said. He saved my life." "Yeah, and took the only radio with him," Kevin said. Lisa's head snapped toward him, anger flashing across her face, and for a moment it looked like she might put him through what was left of the window. But the anger cooled as fast as it had come, because underneath the callousness, Kevin was right. She pulled it together, forcing herself to think past the grief. They did not have a way to contact anybody, and there were still 2 more Paladins after them. Chapter 7. The group retreated down to the 8th floor, moving quickly and quietly through the stairwell, and took refuge in the middle of a cubicle farm at the center of the room. The floor was standard office space, rows of identical workstations stretching out in every direction, family photos and coffee mugs still sitting where their owners had left them at the end of the workday. It was the kind of floor where hundreds of ordinary people spent their ordinary days, and in a few hours those people would come streaming back in with no idea what had walked these aisles overnight. The center of it offered the one thing the 4 of them needed most: distance. Distance from the stairwell, distance from the elevators, distance from every door a machine might come through. All 4 of them kept a watch along the walls, each of them facing a different direction, staying low behind the cubicle partitions in case a Paladin showed up. For a long while, nobody spoke. The adrenaline of the 15th floor was draining away, and what it left behind was heavier. Dave was gone. The man who had opened every door for them, who had rigged the trap that took down Paladin 3, who had pulled a killing machine away from Lisa with nothing but a couple of staplers and his own voice, was lying in the parking lot 15 stories below. Nobody said his name, saying it would have made it real, and none of them had room for real just yet. Mindy was the first to shift, pulling her knees up and wrapping her arms around them. Jenny kept rubbing at her ears, a nervous habit that had started somewhere around the 4th floor and had not stopped since. Lisa sat with her back against a partition, one hand resting over the pocket where the thumb drive sat, though she did not seem aware she was doing it. "What are we supposed to do now?" Jenny asked. "We don't have any way to contact the outside world, and it's only a matter of time before another Paladin finds us," Mindy said. "We'll figure something out," Lisa said. "Yeah, and I know what that something is," Kevin said. The women looked over to Kevin in a confused manner as he stood up. Whatever plan he had arrived at it alone, and the look on his face said he had no intention of explaining it first. He had been quiet for the last several minutes, which for Kevin was less a sign of calm than a sign of calculation. He reached into his pockets and pulled them out, tossing all of his belongings onto the ground: wallet, keys, phone, a money clip, A handful of business cards, all of it scattering across the carpet in front of him, like evidence being entered at trial. After that, he unbuttoned his shirt, lifting it up so that the women could see his bare chest, then spinning around to show his bare back as well. "What are you doing?" Jenny asked. "I'm showing the three of you that I don't have anything to hide. I don't have whatever was stolen," Kevin said. Kevin kicked off his shoes, yanking off his socks and tossing them to the ground one after the other. He reached for his belt, and the women all held their hands up at once. Okay, you've made your point," Mindy said. "No, I haven't," Kevin said. Kevin dropped his pants, leaving him standing there in the middle of the cubicle farm in nothing but his boxers. Mindy turned her head away. Jenny stared hard at the floor. "Open your eyes. Do it." Mindy braved it, looking up as Kevin patted himself down, turning out the waistband of his boxers, running his hands along his sides, showing that he had nothing hidden on him anywhere. "Are you satisfied that I don't have anything on me?" Kevin asked. "Yes, I am," Mindy said. "Now please, for the love of God, put your clothes back on." "While I do, you ladies can decide who is going next," Kevin said. The words landed like a slap. Kevin bent down and gathered his pants, entirely casual about it, as if he had just proposed splitting a lunch bill. "There is no way in hell I'm getting naked in front of you," Jenny said. "You're going to do it, or else I'm going to make you," Kevin said. "The hell you are." "Fine. If you won't do it, I'm going to be forced to assume you're the thief, in which case, I'm well within my rights to take you out." "Take you out?" Mindy asked. "Did you snort some coke while we weren't looking?" "Yeah, just calm down, Kevin," Lisa said. "I will not calm down. I've proven that I'm not the thief. As long as the thief is still among us, my life is in danger, and I have a right to defend myself. So either you're going to strip, or I'm going to consider you a threat." He was buttoning his shirt as he said it, and somehow that made it worse. There was no rage in his voice, no panic. He had worked the whole thing out like a contract negotiation, and in his accounting, the two women in front of him were simply the next items on the agenda. The same man who had been leering at a photograph minutes ago had rebuilt himself into a courtroom, complete with judge, jury, and a verdict already drafted. Mindy and Jenny looked at each other, and the concern passed between them without a word. Both of them knew they were innocent. Both of them also knew that the man in front of them had talked himself into a corner where hurting them counted as self-defense. They stood up and began to disrobe, Jenny's hands going to the top button of her shirt, her jaw tight and her eyes fixed on the far wall. Before they could get too far, Lisa pulled a red thumb drive from her pocket and held it up for everyone to see. The floor went still. Jenny's hands dropped away from her collar. "Lisa, you're the thief?" Jenny asked. "Yes, but I have a good reason," Lisa said. "I don't give a good goddamn what the reason is," Kevin said. "You're going to give me that device." Lisa stood up quickly, squaring into a defensive stance and staring Kevin down. She slid the drive back into her pocket, freeing both hands. "You may be able to overpower me, but you're going to wear the scars of it for the rest of your life," Lisa said. The two of them stood locked in the standoff, neither one giving ground. Kevin had size on her, and both of them knew it, but Lisa's stance said she had already accepted that fact. Whatever he took from her, he was going to pay for it. Seconds stretched out. Jenny and Mindy stayed frozen where they were, afraid that any movement might tip the balance one way or the other, until Mindy broke the silence. "What did you steal, Lisa, and why?" Lisa held Kevin's stare a moment longer, long enough to get him to back up a step and listen. Only then did she answer. "I was going through the code tonight when I noticed something that I didn't put in there." "You know you're not the only person working on the project, right?" Kevin asked. "No shit. But I am the person who personally approves every bit of code before it gets uploaded to the Paladins. And I didn't authorize this." "What is it?" Mindy asked. "A hidden subroutine that turns the Paladins from defensive units into offensive ones," Lisa said. "Like what we're dealing with now?" Jenny asked. "No, like the ability to use weapons and advanced tactics," Kevin said. Everyone turned toward him. His anger had subsided for the moment, his eyes distant, the pieces visibly coming together behind them. "How would you know?" Mindy asked. "Because the generals have been pushing for this to be an option. The discussions were way above my pay grade, but I heard enough to figure it out. I guess the dollar amount got so high that Mr. Meridian couldn't say no." "That's my thought," Lisa said. "When I saw it, I copied it over to this drive. To what end, though? Kevin asked. It's not like you could sell it with Meridian knowing it was in there. You'd get sued, or worse, end up at a black site for taking a toy away from the military. Honestly, I don't know what my plan was. I just knew someone needed to know about it. It was a strange thing to hear from her. All night Lisa had been the one with the answers, the one with the plan, the one who knew the machines down to the last screw. And here she was, admitting that the choice that started all of this had been made on instinct alone. No buyer lined up, no scheme, no exit strategy. Just a programmer who found something rotten buried in her own work and could not bring herself to look away from it. Somehow that made it easier to believe her. A liar would have come with a better story. Well, now that it's clear that it's never leaving the premises, what do you say we turn it in and get the hell out of here? Kevin asked. I can't do that, Lisa said. Yeah, if she does, Meridian will have her killed for stealing, Mindy said. We can blame it on Dave. It's not like he's around to refute it, Kevin said. We can say he dropped it before taking a swan dive. You'd tarnish his name just to save your own ass? Mindy asked. Sweetheart, you don't want to know what I'm willing to do to save my own ass. Mindy was taken aback by that. Something in the way he said it made it clear it was not a figure of speech. Kevin turned to Lisa. Give me the drive, Lisa. No. I said, give me the goddamn drive. And I said no. Kevin's composure snapped. He let out a frustrated yell, and then he moved faster than any of them expected. He grabbed onto an unsuspecting Jenny and pulled her close, spinning her around and getting behind her, wrapping his arm around her neck and applying pressure. Jenny's fingers clawed at his forearm, her feet scrambling for purchase against the carpet. Mindy started forward, and Kevin tightened his grip, stopping her in her tracks. You have 5 seconds to give me that thumb drive before I snap her neck, Kevin said. 1, 2... Lisa, please, Mindy said. Yeah, Lisa, please. 3, 4... Okay, just let her go, Lisa said. Put the drive on the edge of that cubicle wall right there. Lisa complied. She pulled the drive from her pocket, moving slowly, keeping her hands where he could see them, and set it down on the edge of the cubicle wall he had indicated with a jerk of his chin. The small red device sat there between them, the thing 2 people had already died over, looking for all the world like something a person would lose in a junk drawer and never miss. Now, back away. You too, Mindy. The 2 of them backed away, retreating until they were a good 10 feet from the drive. Kevin stepped toward the device, dragging Jenny along with him, keeping her locked in the headlock the entire way. His free hand closed around the drive. Only once he had it did he shove her forward, and Jenny fell to the ground, gasping for air, her hands going to her throat. Kevin looked down at the thumb drive resting in his palm. Slowly, a big smile spread across his face, the smile of a man who had just found the exit door with his name on it. Somewhere in the last 30 seconds, the thief hunt, the dead security guard, the dead janitor, all of it had stopped mattering to him. He had the cheese, and the maze was over. He started walking toward the rear stairwell door, scooping up his shoes on the way. Thank you very much, Lisa, Kevin said. And just to show you that there's no hard feelings, I'm going to tell Mr. Meridian that it was Dave who took it. But just remember, you're going to owe me. Kevin gave her a wink before turning and running for the stairwell door, his footsteps fading down the aisle. Lisa and Mindy rushed over to Jenny's aid, taking a knee on either side of her and helping her back to her feet. She coughed hard, one hand still pressed against her neck, and leaned into Mindy's shoulder. Lisa steadied her from the other side, watching the rear of the floor where Kevin had disappeared, her expression unreadable. The only sound left on the floor was the stairwell door slamming shut. Chapter 8. Kevin took the elevator down to the lobby. He had run the first 2 flights of stairs before deciding the elevator was the better play. The machines were not going to hurt him, not once Meridian understood what he was carrying. That was the beauty of it. Everyone else in this building was still a rat in a maze, but Kevin was the one holding the cheese, and the man who returned the cheese was not a rat anymore. He was a partner. He rode down alone, and somewhere between the 8th floor and the lobby, he started composing the story he would tell about tonight. Not the version with the strip search or the headlock. The polished version, the one where a junior executive kept his head while everyone around him panicked, identified the thief, recovered the asset, and delivered it personally. That version had legs. That version got told at company retreats. He straightened his tie in the polished reflection of the doors and rehearsed the moment in his head, testing out expressions, settling on confident but humble. The numbers ticked down. 7, 5, 3. The doors opened, and Kevin's confidence evaporated on the spot. He stood cautiously in the doorway of the elevator, one hand holding the door open, and scanned the lobby. The wide floor was still and silent. Dave's mop and bucket sat where they had been abandoned hours ago. The countdown screen glowed on the far wall, zeros across the board, and beneath it the data port waited in its little window. And there, standing by the front doors of the building, was Paladin Prime. The android stood motionless in front of the glass, framed against the darkness outside, its dull, unfinished frame drinking in the lobby light. Kevin had seen the machines in marketing materials, in renders and staged photos, always shot from flattering angles with dramatic lighting. None of that had prepared him for the scale of the real thing standing between him and the only exit. As soon as Paladin Prime spotted him, its eyes turned red, and it began marching toward him. Every instinct in Kevin's body screamed at him to retreat into the elevator. He fought it. He had a plan, and the plan was sound, and he was not going to fall apart the way the janitor had. He raised the red thumb drive above his head, holding it up like a badge, and called out as loud as he could. "Mr. Meridian, I have the drive. I have the drive." The android kept coming. Its footsteps rang against the lobby floor, each one landing with the weight of a dropped safe, and its pace did not slow in the slightest. Kevin kept yelling, waving the drive overhead, his voice climbing higher with every step it took. The plan stopped feeling sound somewhere around the moment Paladin Prime crossed within 10 yards of him. Kevin broke. He fell back into the elevator car and began hitting the close door button, stabbing at it over and over. "Come on, come on, come on!" Finally, the doors began to slide shut, the gap narrowing, the lobby and the advancing machine disappearing behind brushed steel. Then a metal hand shot through the gap and clamped onto the edge of the door, stopping it cold. The doors shuddered against the grip and gave up, retracting open again. Paladin Prime filled the entire frame. "I have the drive! I have the drive!" Kevin cowered in the rear of the elevator car, pressing himself into the corner, as if the extra 6 inches might save him. Paladin Prime stared at him, leaning into the car, its eyes burning bright red, close enough now that Kevin could hear the low hum of whatever lived inside its chest. He thought of Tom on the video screen, dangling by his throat, and of the sound the janitor had made when he hit the parking lot. His whole body was shaking, and the drive rattled in his outstretched fist. Then, after a moment, the eyes shifted back to blue. The red drained away like a decision being reversed, and the android went still. A speaker crackled somewhere overhead, and Mr. Meridian's voice filled the air. "Now, exactly where did you get that from?" Kevin swallowed. His mouth had gone dry, and the rehearsed speech from the elevator ride had scattered somewhere beyond recovery. He forced the words out. It was the janitor. One of the paladins knocked him out of a window, and he dropped it." The janitor? Meridian trailed off, and even through a speaker, the doubt in his voice was unmistakable. It was the tone of a man examining a receipt that did not add up. "I swear he was greedy," Kevin said. "He was tired of working for peanuts and decided to rob the company. But he didn't, and I have what he stole." Kevin continued holding the drive in the air, arm extended in front of Paladin Prime, the little red device trembling slightly at the end of his fist. The android did not move. The silence stretched long enough for Kevin to become aware of his own heartbeat. After a few tense moments, Paladin Prime stepped back and moved out of the way, clearing a path out of the elevator. "Let's see what you have then," Meridian said. Kevin stepped out cautiously, easing past the machine the way a man eases past a dog he does not trust, keeping his eyes on Paladin Prime the whole way. The android stood perfectly still, watching him. When Kevin got a few feet from the elevator, it fell in behind him and followed. The escort did wonders for Kevin's nerves, all of them bad. He walked toward the video screen with the machine's footsteps landing behind his own, matching his pace exactly, stopping when he stopped. He passed Dave's mop bucket on the way, the water in it long gone still, and he stepped around it without a glance. On the screen, Mr. Meridian sat in his overstuffed chair, watching him come, the glass of scotch refreshed and resting on the armrest. He looked comfortable. He looked like a man watching his favorite program arrive at his favorite part. The data port glowed just below the frame. Kevin stopped in front of it. This was the moment. The drive in his hand was his ticket out of the building, and if he played it right, his ticket up through it. Fortune favored the bold. Every executive he had ever admired said some version of the same thing. You did not get to the 15th floor by handing over assets for free. He hesitated before inserting the drive. Now, I get a raise for this, right? Maybe a promotion? Are you really trying to blackmail me? Meridian asked. No, nothing like that. But, I risk my life to get this. I just thought a little consideration might be in order. Meridian let out a laugh. It was not a warm sound. Well, you're bold, I'll give you that. If you have what I'm looking for, you'll get what you deserve. Kevin turned the phrase over in his head and chose to hear the good version of it. He hesitated a moment longer, then slid the drive into the port. Sounds good to me. The port swallowed the drive with a soft click, and somewhere far away, in a home Kevin had never seen, the contents began loading onto the tablet in Mr. Meridian's lap. On the screen, the old man's eyes dropped to the device, scanning whatever was appearing in front of him. Kevin waited. Beside him, Paladin Prime stood close enough that he could feel the faint warmth coming off its frame. He looked up at the machine towering over him and attempted a smile. Relax, big fella. I'm on your side. The android did not respond. Its blue eyes stayed fixed on him, unblinking, because there was nothing on it that could blink. The seconds crawled. Kevin watched the screen, watched Meridian's face, hunting for the nod of approval that would end this nightmare and start his new chapter. He was already spending the reward in his head, already picking out the office, when Mr. Meridian's expression shifted. It was small, a slight lift at the corner of his mouth, and then, after a few moments, the old man broke out into laughter. It started low and built, rolling out of the speakers and echoing across the empty lobby. It was the laugh of a man watching something delightful, and nothing about the evening qualified as delightful, which was exactly what made the sound so wrong. Kevin's stomach dropped somewhere below the basement level. I feel like I'm missing something, Kevin said. I just think it's funny that someone so arrogant, so foolish, made it through the screening process to work here, Meridian said. What? I got what was taken from you. Meridian continued laughing as he typed something on his tablet. A moment later, the video screen changed and pictures began popping up, filling the display one after another. They were photos of the red-headed woman from the 15th floor, the woman from the desk. There she was in her summer dress. There she was at a lake, at a birthday party, holding a toddler, standing with an older couple in front of a Christmas tree. Photo after photo of a stranger's life, a screensaver folder, somebody's family memories. The kind of thing an employee keeps on a personal drive at the office to get through the workday. The kind of thing worth exactly nothing to anyone else on Earth. I'm confused, Kevin said. This is what was on the drive. Nothing but photos of this woman and her family. Kevin stared at the pictures for a long moment, his brain refusing to process what his eyes were reporting. The woman from 15. The desk. Lisa at the computer, her hand moving across the desk while she typed, and Jenny glancing over, and nobody thinking anything of it. Realization hit him all at once, and it hit like a wrecking ball. He had been had by Lisa. She had made the switch when he wasn't looking, before he ever put his hands on Jenny, before he counted to 4 with his arm around a young woman's throat. The standoff, the surrender, the drive placed so carefully on the cubicle wall, all of it had been theater, and he had been the only one in the building who did not know he was in a play. He had marched down here and handed the most dangerous man he had ever met a folder of vacation photos. The drive he had blackmailed, threatened, and nearly killed for was a decoy, and the real one was still upstairs in the pocket of a woman who had watched him walk into this with a smile on her face. That bitch, I'm gonna kill her, Kevin said. No, I'm afraid that you're not, Meridian said. The words were quiet and final, a door closing somewhere far away. Kevin's rage collapsed into something much older and much simpler. Please, sir, Mr. Meridian, I can do this. You had your chance. Paladin Prime, kill this man. No! Kevin turned to Paladin Prime, watching as its eyes went from blue to red in a flash. The change instant and absolute, a switch being thrown. He backed up, putting his hands up in a pleading manner, palms out, the universal language of surrender. The killer android was not programmed to speak that language, and it closed in on him with the same unhurried pace it had shown all night. Kevin kept retreating, kept pleading, words spilling out of him about money and mistakes and second chances, none of them slowing the machine by a single step. His back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to go, and Paladin Prime closed the remaining distance. Its metal hands came up and wrapped around his throat, and the pleading stopped. Kevin's fingers pried at the fingers, his polished shoes kicking against the floor, his eyes bulging as the machine choked the life out of him, with the same mechanical patience it applied to everything else. On the screen above them, Mr. Meridian watched. He did not look away, and he did not stop it. He sipped his scotch and observed, the way a man observes a process he paid for and intends to see through. Before too long, Kevin collapsed to the ground, lifeless, crumpling into a heap at the base of the wall beneath the glowing screen. 24 years old, months away from the 15th floor by his own accounting, and in the end, he never made it past the first. His outstretched hand came to rest a few feet from the data port, still open, as if reaching for a deal that had never been on the table. Paladin Prime straightened up and stood over the body, its eyes cooling back to blue, hands returning to its sides, awaiting instruction. Chapter 9. Lisa, Mindy, and Jenny sat in the cubicle farm on 8. The three of them gathered in the aisle where Kevin had made his exit. Nobody had spoken much since the stairwell door slammed shut behind him. There was not much worth saying. Either his gamble was going to work, or it was not. And both outcomes were out of their hands. Jenny sat with her back against a cubicle wall, absently rubbing at her neck where Kevin's arm had been. The skin there was tender, and she suspected it would bruise. A souvenir from a man who had called himself the reasonable one. Mindy sat close beside her, their shoulders touching. Lisa had positioned herself where she could see both stairwell doors at once, and if the loss of the drive troubled her, nothing in her posture showed it. They were startled when Mr. Meridian's voice filled the air, pouring out of the ceiling speakers across the entire floor. Attention, attention, wherever you may be, please make your way over to a video monitor for a special announcement. The women looked at each other, confusion passing between them. "What's going on?" Jenny asked. "Maybe it's something about Kevin," Mindy asked. "Did he sell us out?" Jenny asked. Lisa did not speak. Rather, she got to her feet and walked to the far wall where a screen was mounted, her stride steady, her face giving away nothing. The two younger women shared a glance and then rose to join her, the three of them gathering in front of the dark panel. A few seconds later, the screen lit up. It showed security camera footage of the lobby, the image crisp and wide, framing the video wall and the space in front of it. Paladin Prime stood beside Kevin, the two of them facing the screen, the little red drive visible in Kevin's raised hand. The footage was not running yet, frozen on that single frame like a held breath. "Your companion thought it was a wise decision to lie to me," Meridian said. "It did not end well for him." The video began to play. The women watched as Kevin talked to the screen, his posture shifting through its familiar catalog, the confidence, the bargaining, the wheedling. There was no audio from the lobby, but none was needed. They had all spent enough hours with Kevin tonight to read him fluently. They watched the pictures bloom across the video wall in front of him, watched him stare at them, watched the confusion take hold of his body. Then his face changed, and he started backing up, hands rising, mouth working faster and faster. Jenny wanted to look away and found that she could not. Some part of her kept insisting the footage would stop, that Meridian was only trying to frighten them, that the machine would halt the way it had halted in the elevator. It did not halt. They watched in horror as Paladin Prime closed in and strangled Kevin against the wall, his feet kicking, then slowing, then still. A moment later, the screen went dark. Jenny turned away, one hand pressed to her mouth. Mindy stood rigid, staring at the black panel. Whatever Kevin had been, and he had shown them exactly what he was. With his arm wrapped around Jenny's throat, none of them had wanted this. "As fun as this evening has been, watching my paladins do what they were programmed to do, I'm afraid I have grown weary of it," Meridian said. "Turn over what was taken from me, and you just might survive the night." Meridian cut the feed, darkening the screen and leaving the floor in silence. The offer hung in the air where his voice had been. "I'm confused. I thought Kevin had the stolen data," Jenny asked. Jenny and Mindy looked over to Lisa. The programmer's expression shifted, a smirk breaking through the mask she had been wearing since Kevin walked out. And she reached into her pocket and pulled out another thumb drive. It was identical to the first. Red, small, unremarkable. I switched out the real one for one I found on a desk up on 15, Lisa said. The pieces fell into place for Jenny all at once, the desk with the photo of the redhead, Lisa typing away at the computer while her eyes wandered, the small motion of her hand that Jenny had seen and dismissed. The swap had happened right in front of her, and Lisa had carried the secret through everything since. Through Dave, through the standoff, through 5 seconds of counting with Jenny's neck in the crook of Kevin's arm. Jenny stared at the drive in Lisa's hand, and beneath the relief, something colder stirred. Lisa had watched Kevin walk out of here with a decoy and said nothing. She had let him march down to the lobby, knowing what he was carrying, knowing what Meridian did to people who disappointed him. Kevin had earned plenty, and Jenny's neck still ached with the proof, but Lisa had sent him down there all the same, and the footage on that screen was the receipt. She looked at the older woman and wondered briefly what else Lisa was carrying that none of them knew about. "So, that's the real drive?" Mindy asked. Lisa nodded. "It is, and we still need to figure out how to get out of here with it." "But how? There's still 2 paladins out there," Jenny said. "We need to get to my lab. Come on." Lisa led them over to the stairwell, easing the door open a crack and pausing to listen. The sound came up from below, faint but unmistakable, heavy footsteps ringing against concrete steps a few floors down. Coming up. Toward them. The remaining paladin had found the stairwell, and the stairwell was the only way to the lab. There was no more point in being quiet. The women ran hard up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time where they could, knowing that they had already been spotted. Behind and below them, the footsteps changed rhythm, accelerating, the machine matching their urgency with its own. The stairwell carried every sound, their breathing, their shoes slapping the steps, and underneath it all that relentless metallic drumbeat, close and getting closer. 9, 10, 11. Jenny's legs were burning, and Mindy had a hand hooked under her arm, hauling her along, the 2 of them refusing to let a single step separate them. They got off on 12, which was Lisa's lab. Lisa ran up to the entrance, swiping her keycard, and the door unlocked with a click. The 3 of them pushed through into the lab, the familiar space of workstations and half-assembled components stretching out under the lights. Paladin Prime's empty corner, standing at the far end like a missing tooth. "What do we do?" Mindy asked. Lisa did not answer. She ran over to a station against the far wall and started throwing open cabinets, rummaging through them, sweeping aside equipment, working her way down the row with both hands. Whatever she was after, she knew it was here somewhere, and she was tearing through her own lab like a burglar to find it. "What are you doing?" Jenny asked. Before Lisa could respond, Jenny and Mindy flinched as the stairwell door out in the hallway burst open. The paladin's footsteps crossed the short distance, and then it was at the lab door, banging against it, each impact booming through the room like a battering ram. Lisa popped up from behind the station for a brief moment, holding a long glass pipette. "Keep it occupied." She ducked back down, not waiting for a response, glass clinking as she went back to work below the counter. Keep it occupied, 2 interns, no weapons, and a machine that had learned something from every fight tonight. Jenny and Mindy backed up together, putting themselves in front of the door but 10 feet away from it, and watched as the paladin ripped it off its hinges. The android filled the empty frame, eyes glowing red, staring the duo down. It was pristine, unmarked, no acid scars or scorched joints. This one had not fought anyone yet. It had only learned. Every trick the group had used tonight, the acid, the live wire, the fall through the window, all of it was cataloged somewhere behind those red eyes. It stepped over the ruined door and into the lab, and there was something almost careful in the way it moved now, a machine that had been taught caution by the deaths of its siblings. It took a step toward them, and the women took a step back. "When I say move, you go to the left," Mindy said. Her voice was low and level, pitched for Jenny alone. It was the same voice she had used in the maintenance room, patching Kevin's arm while the world fell apart around her. The voice of someone who got steadier as things got worse. Jenny nodded, and the 2 of them continued backing up, matching the movements of the paladin step for step, letting it walk them deeper into the lab. Mindy's eyes flicked to the sides as they went, reading the floor, and Jenny realized her friend was steering them, drawing the machine along a course only she could see. When they were in between workstations, an open lane to their left and an open lane to their right, they paused. The paladin stopped pretending to walk. It moved swiftly, picking up speed as it rushed toward them, closing the gap in a handful of strides. "Go now," Mindy said. Jenny darted to the left. Mindy went right. For one terrible instant, the Paladin's head swiveled between the two diverging targets, and then it committed, focusing on Mindy. Mindy ran down the aisle where the large workstation stood, a long wooden base crowned with a heavy countertop, the biggest fixed object in the lab. The Paladin came after her at a dead sprint and hit the station hard enough to break it free of its moorings, the bolts shearing away, the entire structure sliding back with force. The station slammed into Mindy and pinned her against the workstation behind her. She let out a scream as her legs were smashed between the two countertops, and beneath the scream came a sound none of them would ever forget, the crack of her spine giving way. The pressure held her upright for a moment, and then she slumped forward over the top of the workstation, barely clinging to life. "Mindy!" Jenny yelled. The Paladin turned and looked at Jenny, its target reacquired, and began marching toward her. It took a few steps, its attention fixed entirely ahead, and it never saw Lisa come up from behind the wrecked workstation. She rose out of the debris with the pipette in her hand, and in one motion, she squeezed the end of it, sending the mystery liquid directly into the data port at the base of the Paladin's spine. It was the weakness she had described in the maintenance room a lifetime ago, the one that needed the right material, and whatever she delivered was the right material. The effect was instant. The android short-circuited, its frame lighting up from within, and it spun, flailing its arms wildly in great sweeping arcs. One of them caught Lisa in the shoulder, the impact like being hit by a swinging girder, sending her bouncing off the wrecked workstation before landing hard on the ground. Lisa looked up, dazed, and the Paladin was above her. Its hand reached down for her, fingers spreading, descending, and stopped mere inches from her face as the machine seized up. The red light in its eyes stuttered, flickered, and locked in place. The whole android stood frozen in its final posture, a statue caught mid-kill. Lisa lay back against the floor and took a deep breath. Across the lab, Jenny was already running to her friend. Mindy lay draped over the countertop, and the sounds she was making were small and wet and wrong. Mindy, come on, you're going to be okay," Jenny said. Jenny took her friend's hand in both of her own, saying it again and again, as if repetition alone could make it true. Mindy's lips moved. She was trying to speak, trying to shape some final thing, but nothing came out except a gurgle, and her eyes were already going somewhere far away. Jenny began crying. Lisa pulled herself up off the floor, cradling her arm against her side, and came over to stand with them. She put her good hand on Jenny's shoulder, and the two of them stayed there with Mindy, holding on, as the life left her body. Somewhere in the room behind them, the frozen Paladin stood locked in its final reach, its dead red eyes fixed on the spot where Lisa had been. Mindy had drawn it, Lisa had killed it, and the cost of the trade was lying on the countertop between them. Chapter 10. Jenny stayed at the wrecked workstation, continuing to mourn her friend, one hand still resting on Mindy's arm, as if leaving might make it final. Across the lab, Lisa walked over to her computer and dropped into the chair, pulling the keyboard toward her with her good arm. Come on. She typed at it for a few moments, windows opening across the screen, login prompts and system trees flashing past. Then a red banner appeared, and she slammed her hand down on the desk. "Damn it! What's wrong?" Jenny asked. "I'm locked out of Paladin Prime's system," Lisa said. "I thought they locked down all of the computers." "My computer is offline. The only connection is directly to Paladin Prime." "So you can't shut it down?" "No. All of his core systems are protected. I can't alter them." Jenny wiped at her face and came over, standing behind the chair, looking at the screen full of access denials. "What about his non-core systems?" Lisa thought for a moment before typing. She worked her way down through the system tree, opening branches, and shook her head in between bursts of typing, as if her ideas were being shot down in real time. Motor functions, denied. Sensor suite, denied. Power management, denied. The rejections stacked up one after another. Finally, she perked up. She stopped typing entirely and stared at the screen for a long moment. "What is it?" Jenny asked. "I have access to a system," Lisa said. "Can you do anything with it?" Lisa thought for a long moment, her eyes moving across the screen, working through a scenario in her mind. Whatever it was, it kept branching, and Jenny could see her testing each branch and following it to its end. She shook her head slowly as she began to type. "Do you trust me?" Lisa asked. "I suppose I do." "Good, because this idea is a long shot, but it's the only one we have." "I trust you," Jenny said. Lisa finished typing, her fingers moving deliberately now, entering something long and precise. It was strange work to watch. There was no urgency in it, no frantic hammering at the keys, just a programmer choosing every word like it was load-bearing because every word was. When she was done, she read it back twice, then committed it with a final keystroke and pushed back from the desk. She walked out of the lab and into the hallway, Jenny trailing behind her, and hit the intercom button mounted beside a video monitor. "Mr. Meridian, we need to talk," Lisa said. For a moment, there was nothing. Then the monitor flickered to life, and Meridian appeared on screen, settled in his chair, exactly where he had been all night. "There appears to only be two of you now. Are we waiting for a third?" Jenny bit her tongue, her hands curled into fists at her sides, but she stayed quiet, the anger plain on her face. "The Paladin killed our friend, but I killed the Paladin," Lisa said. "Paladin Prime is still standing in your way," Meridian said. "And you of all people should know that I know exactly how to disable it. After that, it's just a matter of making some explosives to take care of the front door. My money is on Paladin Prime." "But what if you didn't have to bet at all?" Lisa said. Meridian leaned in. On the small monitor, the movement filled the frame, the first real interest he had shown since the countdown clock hit 0. "Go on?" Lisa held up the thumb drive as she spoke, letting it catch the light of the monitor. "I want you here in 1 hour, alone. Be in the lobby, and you and I can discuss terms." "And exactly what kind of terms would that be?" "Be here in an hour and find out. Or don't. It makes no difference to me. We both know I can walk out of here if I want to. So you can come resolve this issue quietly with me, or very loudly in public. It's your choice." Meridian leaned back in his chair. He took a long sip of his beverage, unhurried, studying her through the camera the whole time. The silence stretched, and Lisa let it stretch, giving him nothing. 1 hour, Meridian said. The video feed went blank. Once it did, and only once it did, Lisa let out a huge sigh of relief, her shoulders dropping as the performance fell away. "That was close," Lisa said. "You want him here?" "Why?" Jenny asked. "With any luck, you'll see. Come on. We need to be somewhere else in case Paladin Prime comes up here." 1 hour later. Lisa and Jenny emerged from their hiding spot on the 6th floor, a supply room they had spent the hour in, sitting in the dark among the shelves, listening for footsteps that never came. The hour had passed slowly. Neither of them had slept, and neither of them had spoken beyond a few whispered words. There had been too much to grieve and too much to fear, and the quiet dark of the supply room had held all of it. They stepped onto the elevator, and neither of them spoke until the doors had closed. "When we get down there, the only thing I want you to do is stay quiet," Lisa said. "I can do that," Jenny said. "If things go south, I want you to try and get back to my lab." "You want me to hide there?" "No, I want you to destroy my computer. If my plan doesn't work, we're both going to die. And quite frankly, I'd like to stick it to Meridian on our way out the door." Jenny was terrified, and it showed in every line of her body, but she gave a slight nod in agreement. Whatever was on that computer, it mattered enough that Lisa's last request on Earth was to see it smashed. They rode the rest of the way in silence. The car counted down through the floors where everything had happened, past 8, past 4, past 3, and Jenny watched the numbers fall like the night replaying itself in reverse. Finally, the doors opened into the lobby. Straight across from them was Paladin Prime, and beside it was Mr. Meridian. The old man looked smaller in person than he did on the screens, but not by much. He wore an overcoat against the night air, and an expression of mild inconvenience, as if he had been called in to sign paperwork. Kevin's body was nowhere in sight. Behind the pair, the front doors were closed against the darkness, and above them, the video wall glowed with its idle blue light. The two women walked across the open floor. Paladin Prime tracked them the entire way, its eyes glowing blue, watching their every movement, its head turning in one long, smooth arc. Somewhere behind that blue light, Lisa's addition was waiting, one line of instruction buried in a mountain of code she was no longer allowed to touch. It would work, or it would not. There was no third outcome, and there was no way to test it that did not involve standing exactly where she was standing now. Lisa kept her pace even and her chin level. Jenny stayed half a step behind her and did as she had promised, staying quiet. Lisa and Jenny stopped 5 yards from them. There was a brief pause, the four of them arranged across the lobby floor before anyone spoke. "My time is valuable, so you have 3 minutes to state your case," Meridian said. For effect, he reached down and clicked a timer on his watch, then folded his hands in front of him. "I know what you did to my paladins, adding in the offensive capabilities," Lisa said. "The weapons training, the tactical ability. You perverted my peacekeeping project, turning them into killbots." "Yes, I did. You work for me, and if you don't like what I do with the creations I pay for, you can always quit." "Well, you could have quit. I think we're a little past that point now." There was no shame in it, no defensiveness. He admitted it the way a man admits to remodeling his own kitchen. "Be that as it may, we're here now, and we're going to figure out what's to be done about this situation," Lisa said. "I assume you have something in mind?" "I do. 10% gross on every Paladin sale." Meridian let out a laugh, sharp and short. "Oh, is that all? Just $1 billion shakedown?" "No, that's just the first thing on my list," Lisa said. "Well, I'll go ahead and stop you there. Let me give you the only deal that's available to you. Give me the drive, and you'll die quickly. If you don't, then, well, I don't know how closely you looked at some of the new enhancements I had installed on Paladin Prime, but specialized interrogation is among them." Jenny got tense, her breath catching, and she grabbed onto Lisa's hand tightly. Lisa glanced down at her. Then, with her face angled away from Meridian, she gave Jenny a wink before holding up the drive. "Okay, Meridian, we accept your deal." Lisa walked over to her left, moving slowly and keeping her hands visible, and set the drive down on a table near the wall before walking back over to Jenny. The little red device sat there under the lobby lights, the whole night's ransom, finally out in the open. "That's my end of the bargain," Lisa said. "I am a man of my word," Meridian said. "Paladin Prime, kill them." Paladin Prime's eyes glowed red. It took a step forward, one heavy footfall ringing across the lobby, and then it stopped. Its eyes flickered between red and blue, the color strobing across its face, as if the machine were caught between two answers to the same question. Its head tilted a fraction of a degree. Its hands opened and closed at its sides. "Paladin Prime, I said kill them," Meridian said. The flickering continued a moment longer. Then it stopped, and Paladin Prime finally snapped fully into red eyes. It looked down at Meridian. The old man saw it, and for the first time all night, the composure cracked. He took a step back, his hand coming up, panic climbing into his voice. "Paladin Prime, I said kill them." Paladin Prime reached down and grabbed Meridian around the neck. It lifted him the way it had lifted Tom at the beginning of the night, the way its sibling had held Kevin against the wall, with no effort and no malice, strangling the life out of him, while his heels kicked above the floor. Meridian clawed at the metal fingers with both hands. His watch, still running its 3-minute timer, glinted under the lobby lights. The machine did not so much as sway. The two women stood frozen, hand in hand, watching. Once he went lifeless, the lights in Prime's eyes went dark. The android went still where it stood, powering down section by section, and its hands stayed locked around Meridian, holding him upright. The dead machine and the dead man propped against each other in the middle of the lobby like some monument nobody had commissioned. The silence afterward was total. Lisa let out a long sigh of relief. She released Jenny's hand and walked over to the table, retrieving the drive and slipping it back into her pocket. "What? What happened?" Jenny asked. "The only system that I still had access to was the verbal commands," Lisa said. "It was the newest thing that I installed, but even so, I couldn't delete what was already there. The only thing I could do was add in an additional command." "What in the world did you add?" "I told Paladin Prime that if he was ordered to kill, that the order was to be overridden, and he was to kill whoever issued the order before shutting down." "So you baited Meridian into killing us?" Jenny asked. "I did. Honestly, I had no idea if it was going to work, but it was the only thing I could think of." Jenny stared at her. The whole negotiation, the demands, the 10%, all of it had been theater with a single purpose: to march Meridian up to the edge and get him to say the words himself. He had signed his own order. Lisa had simply built the pen. "So, now what?" Jenny asked. "We get out of here and never look back," Lisa said. Jenny nodded, and the two of them walked toward the front door of the building, giving the frozen android and its cargo a wide berth on the way. The locks had released with Meridian's arrival, and the door swung open at a push, letting in the cold night air. It smelled like grass and open country, like the world outside had gone on all night without noticing a thing. As they pushed through into the darkness beyond, Lisa glanced back one last time at her creation, Paladin Prime. A hint of sadness filled her, knowing that her life's work was no more. Chapter 11. 1 week later. Lisa was dressed in a high-end business suit, charcoal gray and tailored, the kind of thing that would have looked at home in the executive wing of her old building. She walked into the lobby of an office tower in the middle of town, her heels clicking against marble, and there was nothing in her stride to suggest a woman who had spent a recent evening being hunted through 15 floors by her own creations. The week had been loud. News vans, interview requests, lawyers, federal investigators with folders and patient voices. The Meridian building sat sealed behind tape half a mile of empty field, away from anyone who wanted a picture of it, and the whole country had spent 7 days arguing about what had happened inside. Lisa had given them almost nothing, a brief statement, a somber expression, and a promise to tell the full story to the House committee. Silence, it turned out, was its own kind of currency. Every day she said nothing, her eventual testimony grew more valuable. The lobby around her was busy with the ordinary traffic of a workday, people moving in every direction with badges and coffee cups, and not one of them gave her a second look. A week ago, her face had been on every news broadcast in the country, standing outside the Meridian building, wrapped in a paramedic's blanket. Amazing what a good suit and a steady walk could do. She crossed the floor and walked up to the receptionist. "Hi, can I help you?" the receptionist asked. "Lisa Webb, here to see Mr. Spears," Lisa said. The receptionist looked at her screen. If the name registered as anything other than an entry on a calendar, she hid it well. After a moment, she nodded. "Yes, I have you down right here. Please proceed to the elevator behind me and go up to 35. "Thank you," Lisa said. Lisa walked back, getting onto the elevator, and rode up to the 35th floor. The car was glass along its rear wall, and the city fell away beneath her as it climbed, streets and rooftops shrinking into a grid. She watched it without expression. The last elevator she had ridden had smelled like industrial cleaner and had carried her toward a machine that was supposed to kill her. This one had recessed lighting and smelled faintly of cedar. She decided she preferred this one. She stepped out into a long, ornate hallway, all dark wood paneling and brass fixtures, quiet in the way that only serious money can make a place quiet. The walls held framed photographs of machinery, sleek renders of things with treads and armor plating. The public face of whatever Spears was building in his own labs. Lisa read them as she passed the way another person might read a rival's report card. At the far end sat another desk, manned by a secretary, and before Lisa reached it, the secretary was already up and moving, opening the door to the office beyond. Whatever else could be said about Mr. Spears, his staff was well drilled. Lisa walked in, and a tall man in his late 30s got up from behind his desk to greet her, buttoning his jacket as he came around it. He was younger than she had expected for a man who owned 35 floors, with the easy confidence of someone who had gotten used to being the smartest person in most rooms and was always on the lookout for the exceptions. "Miss Webb, it's a pleasure," Spears said. "Please call me Lisa." "Very well, Lisa. Can I get you anything before we begin?" Lisa looked to the right, spotting a high-end bar built into the wall, crystal decanters lined up in a row and glowing under their own dedicated lighting. "I wouldn't say no to a scotch, neat," Lisa said, coming right up. As Mr. Spears fixed the beverage, Lisa walked over to the window. The office occupied a corner of the building, and the glass ran floor to ceiling along both outer walls. She looked down at the city below, the traffic crawling along in miniature, the whole town laid out like a model on a table. Somewhere out past the edge of it, beyond the last streets and the open country, sat a 15-story glass building with tape across its doors. From up here, none of it was visible at all. "It's quite the view," Lisa said. "I've built this company from the ground up over the last decade. I figured I could splurge a little on the office." Spears motioned for her to have a seat, offering up her drink as she settled into the chair across from his desk. The two of them settled in, and Lisa took a sip of the scotch, letting out a satisfied noise. "I see you splurged on the liquor too," Lisa said. "Life's too short to drink the cheap stuff," Spears said. Hard to argue with that. There was a lightness to the exchange, two people performing the opening moves of a game they had both played before. Spears leaned back in his chair, glass in hand, and let the small talk reach its natural end. "So, Lisa, what can I do for you?" Lisa reached into her shirt pocket and pulled out the red thumb drive, setting it down on the desk between them. It made a small click against the wood. 5 people had been locked in a building over that drive. 4 of them were dead. It had been swapped, stolen at knife point of a countdown, carried through acid and electricity and a 15-story fall, and it had ended the night in the pocket of the only person who had known its worth from the beginning. Now it sat on a rich man's desk next to a coaster. Spears looked at it intently for a long moment, his expression carefully unchanged before looking back at her. "I'm almost afraid to ask what's on there," Spears said. "It's the full specs of my Paladin Protocol," Lisa said. "The same paladins that went crazy and murdered your former boss. Now, why would I be interested in something like that, especially when we have our own variations being built as we speak? Because you and I both know that your protectors are at least 6 months away from being viable, and years away from being on the level of my paladins." Spears did not answer right away, which was an answer in itself. He set his glass down on the desk and rotated it a quarter turn. "That may be true, but I'm not sure if you've seen the news lately. Your paladins have a negative public opinion. How would I look if I hired the person responsible for programming them?" It was a fair objection, and it was also an opening move, and both of them knew the difference. "You'd look like a genius because it's pretty clear you haven't seen the news lately," Lisa said. "If you had, then you'd know I'm scheduled to testify in front of a public house committee tomorrow, at which time I'll be presenting evidence that Mr. Meridian himself sabotaged the project for a tax write-off." Now, why in the world would he have done that? Because the military wasn't interested in a protection robot, they were interested in one with pure offensive capabilities, and Mr. Meridian was dead set against it. "You and I both know that's bullshit," Spears said. Lisa smirked, tapping the thumb drive with one finger. "Maybe, maybe not, but when I show the House Committee what's on this drive, they'll believe me when I say that he discovered offensive capabilities had been added against his wishes. So he activated them to eliminate those who were responsible, myself included. It was elegant in its way. Every element of it was built from the truth and assembled into a lie. There had been a hidden subroutine. Meridian had activated the Paladins. People had died for it. All she had done was reverse the polarity of the story, casting the dead man as the saboteur and herself as the survivor of his cover-up. The dead, as Kevin had once observed about Dave, were not around to refute anything. "I know we don't have the brightest politicians, but I don't think they're going to buy it," Spears said. "Well, hypothetically, if I announced during their moment of doubt that I had been hired by your firm to continue production of the Paladin Protocol, only with full offensive capabilities that the military was begging for, do you think they'd overlook the holes in my story?" And there it was, the whole machine laid out on the table next to the drive. The story did not need to be believed. It needed to be useful, and nothing was more useful to a room full of politicians than a defense contractor promising to deliver exactly what the generals had been begging for. Wrap the product in the flag, and the questions about how it got there would quietly find their way to the bottom of the agenda. Spears got a big grin on his face as he took a sip of scotch. It was the grin of a man watching someone else describe the inside of his own head. "So you're looking for a job then?" Spears asked. "If you're hiring. I'm sure I could be. What are your terms?" "My own lab with a hand-picked team, a 9-figure research budget, and 1%, gross, on anything I produce, including the Paladins." She said it without ceremony, the way a person reads off a grocery list. A week ago, she had asked Meridian for 10% as theater, a number designed to be refused. This number was real, and it was calibrated, small enough to say yes to, large enough to change everything. Spears did the math behind his eyes, and Lisa watched him do it, and both of them knew the other was watching. "Assuming you have all of your previous specs for the Paladins, that could make you a billionaire within 18 months, Spears said. "And make you a billionaire 50 times over in that same amount of time," Lisa said. Spears let out a chuckle before downing the rest of his scotch. He set the empty glass down and regarded her across the desk. "I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork, but before I do, I just have one question." "What is it?" Lisa asked. I've heard through the grapevine over the years that you were the one who was adamant that the Paladins were to be used as peacekeepers only. That's not a question, Lisa said. I don't suppose it is. But before I make you a billionaire, I'd just like to know what changed. Lisa took another sip of her scotch. It was the same question Jenny would have asked, the same question Dave might have asked, the same question that a version of Lisa Webb had been asking herself in a 12th floor lab a week ago, staring at code she had never approved. Somewhere in the past 7 days, between the paramedic's blanket and the tailored suit, that version of her had stopped answering. She set the glass down. Hiring talent is a lot easier when they think they're working towards the greater good, Lisa said. After all, there's a reason why my team was so much further ahead than yours, Mr. Spears. And as much as I'd like to take credit for it, it's not all due to my genius. The words came out smooth and unhurried, and they rearranged everything they touched. The peacekeeping mission, the adamant insistence, the lead programmer who approved every line of code with her own hands. In one sentence, it all converted from conviction into management technique, a story told to engineers so they would pour their souls into the work. Whether it had been that from the start, or had only become that in the retelling, was a question the woman in the chair showed no interest in answering. So once you and your team got through the difficult stuff, Meridian had the offensive capabilities added? He did, but he made the mistake of doing it behind my back and not compensating me for it. If it was a lie, it was a perfect one, seamless from every angle. And if it was the truth, then the woman who had calmed a terrified intern with breathing exercises, who had confessed to whistleblowing with no plan and no buyer, had never existed at all. Spears studied her for a moment, perhaps running the same calculation. And then he seemed to decide it did not matter. In his business, it rarely did. He let out another laugh, nodding as he got up from his desk. He walked around to Lisa, who stood as well, smoothing the front of her suit jacket, and the duo shook hands, her grip firm and dry. "That's all I needed to hear," Spears said. "Welcome aboard. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can create together." The end.